You ready? Good evening. Good evening and welcome. Since 6 p.m., the Board of Education has been in closed session discussion of lawfully closed meeting minutes for the purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district. Litigation, when an action against, affecting, on, or behalf of the particular district has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal. And finally, the sale or purchase of securities, investments, or investment contracts. Can we have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. We are in open session. Well, good evening and welcome to the open session meeting for September 21st, 2015. Our mission is to educate students to be self-directed learners, complex workers, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, quality producers, and community contributors. Roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Student ambassadors present, Abby Rader and Kevin Angel. Board members present, Jackie Romberg, Donna Wanke, Susan Price, Terry Fielden, Mike Yench, Susan Crotty, and Kristen Fitzgerald.
Okay, if you could all stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have BB Elementary here to say the pledge for us. So since you're standing, you're ready for good news? Is that what you're...
Yes, we'll move right into recognition. I'd like to invite the Director of Community Relations, Julie Carlson, to come forward and help me recognize a group of community leaders and staff members. Naperville Community School District 203 earned the 2015 Partnership District Award from the National Network of Partnership Schools at Johns Hopkins University, and Julie's going to tell us a little bit about the project that earned the recognition.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Bridges. The National Network Partnership of Schools at Johns Hopkins sent us a note letting us know this is the 15th Annual Partnership District Award that District 203 has received, a praiseworthy achievement and one that is indicative of the superior application that we submitted. The core team for the School Family Community Partnership team has been focused on creating a welcoming climate. And we initially were trying to figure out how to be more inclusive of more people in our community, and started by looking at possibly translating some of the documents that the School Family Community Partnership teams were offering so that we could try to get more people engaged. And that led us down a different path, and we ended up creating a different tool that's even richer and broader in scope. So I wanted to let everybody know a little bit about it. The awards committee at NNPS carefully assessed the documents that we submitted, and our activity, Celebrating Cultural Connections brochure, has been included in the Promising Partnership Practices book of 2015. The readers praised the planning and the completion of the attractive brochures, which will be useful in every school in our district that serves students and families featured in the countries of origin. Again, the objective here is to be welcoming of families, and also it serves as an educational tool for students, staff, and parents so that we can be more culturally responsive and sensitive to different people in the school district. So we have 3 that we started with this past year: Mexico, China, and India. And we started with those because those are the highest representation of population in the district, and we have plans this year to expand the project to include another 3 countries. But right now, I would like to recognize the members of the core team who are here today for the outstanding work that they did to help us earn this award. First, I'd like to recognize Dee Dauber. And he won't want to come up here, but our Deputy Superintendent, Kane Osborne. Lisa Xagas, our Director of Student Services. Our parent co-chair who led this project with me, Mariella Romano. This year's parent co-chair, Pam Dandridge. And lastly, Ritu Ahuja. And there are several other members of our committee who were not able to be here today, but I wanted to thank everyone who was involved in this project.
Including Julie Carlson.
Mike, do you want to be in the picture? Oh, but I can take the picture.
I don't have my.
All right, I'm going to take 2. Ready? 1 and 2. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your leadership in supporting our schools. Now I'd like to invite the principal of Mill Street Elementary School, Mary Baum, and Irene Egbers to come forward, please. So I'll speak briefly here and read a little bit, and then I'll ask Mrs. Baum to tell us a little bit more about why Irene was nominated for this recognition. One of the most significant outcomes from our Future Focus 203 community engagement process was the message from our community, our board, and our staff was that if we focus on our mission statement, our purpose, and what we do, everything else will really fall into line for us as a school district. So we thought it would be a great idea for us to begin recognizing students who exemplify the mission statement through their actions and through their work. And so this has been one of our favorite things, to just recognize students who, just through being who they are and what they do, really bring the mission to life. And this is our first recognition for this year. And congratulations to Irene Egbers, a 5th grader at Mill Street Elementary School who is living the district mission statement. Irene demonstrated exemplary leadership skills as a collaborative worker and complex thinker at Outdoor Ed. Her self-directed behavior makes her a leader for the Mill Street Running Club. And I'll ask Mrs. Baum to say a little bit more about why Irene deserves this recognition.
Thank you, Superintendent Bridges. Irene really does exemplify the qualities of a collaborative worker and a complex thinker. One of the experiences that every 5th grade student looks forward to in the elementary years is outdoor education. And one of the outcomes is to promote teamwork and team spirit. We were really fortunate this year that we had outdoor education very early in the year to really promote that teamwork, and Irene was quite the leader. Mr. Hoff, who's our art teacher, was one of her team leaders and observed her really bringing her team together. The tasks that they present at one of the activities, the initiatives course, course is really some challenging problem solving. And Irene really focused on keeping her team working together, solution oriented, and did a great job. Those of you who've been in the district are probably familiar with the Crosstown Classic, which is a really large running race that Mill Street sponsors. And we have quite the large running club, don't we? About 150 students who participate. Irene's leadership again has stood out in that. Even though at times she's not been able to run due to an injury, she shows up every morning for practice and is able to be a good role model for our younger students. We have kindergartners who are part of the running club. She helps get them back to their classes in the morning and has just really done an outstanding job. I think really what is of note when I learned that Irene was our mission maker for the month, and I did an announcement at the start of the school day and was reading the different qualities that she exemplified. Her teacher, Mrs. Quigley, who's here tonight, told me later that every student in class turned around and pointed to Irene before I had even said who the student was. So she's recognized not just by the adults in the building, but also by her peers.
Looks like, since there are some folks out there taking pictures of you, you might know them. So do you want to introduce guests that are here with you today?
I have my mom and my dad and my teacher and my brother Daniel here with me.
Great. Well, thank you for bringing here this evening for this recognition. I'll set this down, and we're going to ask you to pose for a picture for Mrs. Fragoso, and then if your parents want one, okay? Congratulations. Great job.
Okay, moving on to public comment. I don't have any cards for public comment. Is there anybody from the audience who would wish to address the Board of Education at this time? All right, very well. Then we'll move on to communications. And first up is the exciting part of the meeting. That's the student ambassador reports.
Hello. I'd like to begin by saying that the National Merit semifinalists were announced this past week for Naperville Central and Naperville North. Naperville Central had 17 National Merit semifinalists, and they will go on to compete to become finalists and for part of $33 million in scholarship money. Additionally, the College and Career Center at Naperville Central has begun their annual college visits, where individual colleges can come in and make presentations to students, informational presentations, so students can learn more about individual schools. This also is very helpful because students can demonstrate interest, which is often being tracked by the colleges, so it gives them a small benefit when they're applying to colleges. Additionally, we'll be having a guest speaker, Chris Herron. He'll be speaking at an all-school assembly in October, and he's a former NBA basketball player who struggled with addiction and is now speaking about sobriety and staying clean, as well as beating addiction. Naperville Central hosted the Naperville Marching Band Classic this weekend at Benedictine, and they had the Chicago Bears drumline perform, as well as a performance of their own band. And then a word on Chromebooks, which have been rolled out this year. Teachers have been very innovative in using them. There are a couple examples of them allowing students to be virtually in class if they're homesick through Google Hangouts, so they can watch a lesson or things like that. They have also been used for online quizzes, for example, like homework quizzes, so that can save the teacher time grading, as he doesn't have to go through them all by hand. Some teachers have found that it's rather hard to keep kids on task while using them, but they've managed to control that pretty well. And then I'd like to finally close by saying that this week is homecoming week at Naperville Central. The theme this year is Sugar Rush, and so this weekend is the dance, this Friday is the homecoming football game, and this week is dress-up week. And then Friday, we will have a all-school assembly that's divided up into two parts where the homecoming king and queen will be announced.
For Naperville North, there were 21 National Merit semifinalists. And similar to Central, we are having a lot of colleges come and visit us. Tonight is Yale University, and Thursday night will be the Big Ten. So we've got schools like The Ohio State and University of Minnesota. Some words on Chromebooks. Similar to Central, we've been rolling them out, and they've been going very well. A lot of students are really enjoying them. We've used them a lot. Some concerns: it's been difficult for students who don't have wireless printers to hook them up to their printers. Additionally, YouTube videos from school we are not allowed to watch, which, although I understand like there can be like some conflicts and like SIPA, there are some things that we believe that might be more beneficial if we were to have them. Other than that, the food, we have a new food provider, Aramark, and students seem to be liking them. However, our student government at Naperville North is going to put out a survey for students to give us some feedback on that.
Abby, could you give us a little background on yourself since it's your first meeting?
I'm a senior at Naperville North High School, and I'm the student ambassador.
Do you play any sports?
Yeah.
I play lacrosse.
Oh, how would you know that? Do you plan to go to college, and do you have a career choice in mind? Or?
I'd like to major in dietetics. I haven't decided on a college yet, but I'm looking at Purdue and Texas Christian right now.
Yeah, I hear Purdue's very good. I hear that. Well, thank you.
I always like to chime in and support and help you with your reports when I think you missed something. Kevin reported about the marching classic that the Naperville Central just hosted, and they didn't compete, but they performed an exhibition. Did you happen to catch who was the 2A champions in that event on Saturday?
No.
It was Naperville North.
Yes, it
so
was.
Congratulations to Naperville North. So now, I always like to feed into the rivalry. And there's no real rivalry there because Central couldn't compete. They were the hosts, so they were just an exhibition. But thanks for your reports.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to more reports from you in the future. Item 6.02 is written communications. There's several items there to review at your pleasure. Superintendent, staff, school reports.
Great. I'll invite our first presentation team to come forward for the new educator system of support. One of the commitments identified in our strategic blueprint was examining the method in which we induct and support new educators in our school district. When I speak to superintendent colleagues and talk to those in other districts about the amount of support and level of support we provide new teachers, I'm very proud of the work that we have done and very impressed with the improvements that we have made and looked at based on educator feedback and ensuring long-term success of our educators. And I think as you see the cross-section of individuals who will be presenting tonight, an important point for us to stress is that it is a collaborative effort of a number of administrators and faculty members in our school district to ensure that those new to our district that we hire are going to be successful in the jobs that they have. So to share with you a little bit more detail this evening is our Director of Professional Learning, Melissa Hampton, Director of Career 203, Gina Herman, and our Director of Student Services, Lisa Exegas. So take it away.
All right, good evening. Tonight we are here to provide the Board of Education with an update on the new educator system of support, Blueprint Commitment Item 216A. The process for developing this system of support continues to be a collaborative approach. The outcomes for tonight's update are to review the process for designing the new educator system of support, provide an overview of the current system of support, highlight the improvements for the 15-16 school year based on feedback, and explain the steps that we have taken to differentiate. As we started to review professional learning throughout the district and align to our District 203 framework for professional learning, it was concluded that the induction for new educators was in need of redesign and became Blueprint Item 216A. Implement a new educator program to build educator efficacy and increase student learning. We began our work in the school year of 2013-2014, pulling together a full design committee of varied EC 12 members. To ensure differing perspectives, the team consisted of early childhood through 12th grade members. We had teachers, building and district mentors, administrators, and related service staff. Our first task as a team was to review the current state of induction. We went through several protocols to determine where we were as a district, what was working, and what needed improvements. We researched best practice induction and collected information on what areas school districts were implementing and offering for their new educators. Our next step was to synthesize everything and create recommendations, which included our ideal state and was aligned to best practice. The outcome of a full year of design work was to recommend a 2-year system of support for new educators, providing mentors for all and ongoing professional learning, job embedded, aligned to district goals and mission. Last year was our first year in implementation, and we felt for a first year it was extremely successful.
In the spring of 2015, new educators and mentors were surveyed on the effectiveness of the new educator system of support. The feedback to the design committee from the survey was overwhelmingly positive. 95% of new educators reported that they felt the new educator system of support provided them with the support to achieve a high level of efficacy in implementing curriculum and job responsibilities. 97% of new educators reported that the system of support positively impacted their transition to school and district culture. In addition to the positive results, the survey also provided an opportunity to make some adjustments based on feedback from both the mentors and new educators who had experienced the program. These survey results, in addition to the work of the design committee, led to this continued comprehensive system of supports that incorporates layers of initial training, collaboration with colleagues, and job-embedded professional learning. One of the many areas of pride for the new educator system of support for the 2015-2016 school year is the multitude of differentiated experiences for the new professionals joining our district. These experiences allow all of our new educators to receive support focused towards the role they serve in our buildings.
Each new educator's career launches with the support of human resources. Human resources personnel outline and support new educators through the onboarding process, introduce them to Career 203, and provide an overview to the comprehensive system of supports that is offered to new educators as they prepare for their first day of school. Human resources support sessions are offered throughout the summer to provide for small groups and to accommodate newly highly educator schedules and needs. HR offers continued support to educators throughout their career. The learning begins with the new educator orientation summer sessions. These sessions, which are differentiated by content and technology focus, immerse educators into 2 days of district-based learning and 2 days of building-based learning. District and building leaders present information that is essential to the new educators as they prepare for their students. The learning initiated in the summer orientation sessions progresses with the new educator professional learning cohorts. Year 1 cohort session centralizes around the Danielson framework as a roadmap to identify aspects of instruction or professional practice that promotes improved student learning. New educators continue their learning in Year 2 cohort sessions with a focus on assessment as it relates to the learner. These cohorts also provide an opportunity for our new educators to build a community of peers and a culture of ongoing reflection as they conquer the challenges of education and share in their successes. Further support is provided to each new educator by a trained peer mentor. Mentors attend a summer professional learning day focused on mentor responsibilities, relationship building, and communication skills specific to mentorship. Mentor professional learning is extended throughout the school year through mentor forums. The mentor forums are led by the district's lead mentors, which is a position new this school year. Lead mentors guide mentors through discussion topics inclusive of best practices to support new educators through various phases, stress management strategies, approaches to difficult conversation, refinement of instructional practices, and enhancement of team building involvement. Mentors proactively support new educators through the complexity of a school year. While the level of mentor support is differentiated based on need and experience, all new educators engage in peer observations. Peer observations offer a student-focused professional development opportunity that nurtures a collegial exchange of ideas and promotes a sense of trust. Additionally, all new educators are supported by their mentors through weekly meetings. This collaboration time allows for new educators to share achievements and or to gain insight on the best way to approach a challenge. These meetings provide the opportunity to review time-appropriate and differentiated checklists to ensure new educators are prepared for upcoming building or district events. Job-embedded professional learning is offered to all District 203 educators. Instructional coordinators, learning support coaches, teacher leaders, related service supervisors, and project managers support educators as they implement new learning by providing modeling, observation, and feedback. Job-embedded professional learning is tailored to the teacher's needs and is differentiated according to personal experience and expertise. This collaborative, purposeful, ongoing approach to learning increases educators' instructional capacity and student learning.
At this time, we would like to showcase the experiences of our new educators through a video that illustrates their beliefs about the new educator system of support. You don't need to. Mute your mute.
My experience has been wonderful so far. I've been feeling really supported, and like any question I have has been answered, and it's really been helpful in helping me be the best teacher I can be for my students.
Now in my second year, I have a little bit better perspective.
This year coming in so much more prepared, I kind of know how the systems work, I know who to go to, I know the paperwork, kind of the district expectations. So last year was definitely a learning year, but definitely prepared me to be better this year.
There's all sorts of training sessions going on. Of course, District 203 has filled us up with wonderful training exercises. There's also a lot of supportive staff available to us.
There was the 2-day training in the summer before we even started, and then as a first year, last year we had monthly, every couple month meetings, and then the mentor. So last year I was assigned to a mentor in my building, someone that I could go to with questions building level or district level, which was really nice. You didn't feel like you were bothering someone because it was really kind of their job as well to support you.
You don't think about the little things. How do I take attendance? What are the policies in this building? What's going on here and there? And those are also questions that you don't feel like asking other people. You think you're sort of being a bother and a nuisance, and so having a mentor to ask those questions, kind of get those things taken care of so you can breathe a little bit easier and worry about why you're here.
Our mentees are really just rowing the boat the first year, just trying to get to the next day, to the next part of our curriculum. And I think we provide that insight of not only what we're doing, but why we're doing it.
I think if I didn't have Lisa, I would feel like I was doing it on my own a little bit more and maybe a little more lost. She's just that one person I know I can go to. She's there anytime I need her, so I can email her, call her, set up meetings. At the beginning of the school year, she was able to come into my classroom and help me set up and arrange things, make sure I had all the curriculum materials I need, and then she just sat with me for a while and just shared quick tips.
Now that I'm sort of past that, I can focus a little bit more on who I am in the classroom, and that's very valuable for me.
I think that it's a program that's really going to move our new educators forward and really help them be prepared to be the best of their job.
The district is using 2 valuable resources. They're using experienced educators that are willing and want to work with new educators, but we're also using that valuable resource of our quality educators the district has hired, and they're both sharing and collaborating. They're both learning from one another. I think that is the benefit, and ultimately the goal of any professional development is impacting students, and I feel like when you put these collaborative partnerships together, that will happen.
It is clear from the feedback we continue to receive that our new educators are appreciative and thankful for this system of support. We greatly look forward to continuing the program for years to come.
We appreciate your time this evening and your continued support for the new educators in District 203, and we are happy now to take any of the questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. It's an excellent report. Any questions from the board? Donna?
So I was super excited to go through and see everything that you have done. It's been a while since I've been in the classroom in 203, but I can tell you that it's ramped up. Like the 2-year program, I think I had 1 year. I think my mentor was somebody who was just assigned to me, but there was no training. I think, at least, that they didn't have any training that they went through. They were just somebody that I could ask questions of. The fact that they're allowed to do, that they have professional learning and that they're doing peer observations, which as a new teacher, I remember an observation was a stressful thing as a first-year teacher. To have peer evaluations where you get feedback without the stress involved because you know that, it's just your mentor, is amazing. So thank you. I can just see the depth and how much has been put into it and how much it's changed and evolved over the years, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Donna. Mike? No? Just had your hand up. Typically, you ask a question when your hands are up, so that's not that I pay any attention to what you're doing, but
He's just excited.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Well, it was a great program, and it seems, just to echo what Donna said, it seems like the mentors are the biggest aspect of it, and I could see that being a new teacher, that just nice to have somebody to go and talk things over before you get started and how to approach the kids in particular. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say,
I'll invite Jen and Kip to come forward. Another one of our blueprint commitments involves the development of online blended learning opportunities for students in our school district. We're now in our second year of an online consortium with Wheaton-Warrenville Community Unit School District 200 and Indian Prairie School District 204. Partners with us in the ELO, Expanding Learning Opportunities Online Consortium. And here this evening to provide the Board of Education with an update on ELO is our Chief Academic Officer, Jennifer Hester, and the Director of ELO, Kip Bigman. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present an update on our online learning consortium, Expanding Learning Opportunities. As Superintendent Bridges, I think, already used the name, we commonly refer to it as ELO. The Board of Education has seen the mission statement for ELO before. The first part of the mission statement communicates a commitment that our students are engaged and a commitment that they're successful in online and blended learning experiences. The mission statement also communicates the consortium's commitment that online learning courses should match the quality and the rigor of our face-to-face courses, and that instruction should be provided by teachers from the consortium districts with the same resources offered to our students in our face-to-face courses. Sorry, my paper's being difficult. To meet the presentation outcomes this evening, Mr. Pigman and I will provide an update on the progress of online learning within the consortium. We'll share celebrations, and then we'll also share growth strategies which are consistent with our online and blended learning strategic blueprint commitment 116F. So just a reminder to everyone, our consortium partners, as Mr. Bridges said, are Indian Prairie District 204, Wheaton-Warrenville District 200. One of the major benefits that the partnership has afforded us thus far is a collaborative relationship and shared learning opportunities. And I will say those are definitely among our students in the three districts, among our teachers, and among the district administrators. We also have shared resources in professional learning. We have shared course content, our learning management system, and some other factors as well. Starting an online learning consortium has been a journey. The learning that we've done with our ELO partners has led to many celebrations for both our students and our staff. Overall, students in the 3 districts are achieving at high rates in their ELO courses. Over 80% of District 203 students earned a B or higher in the courses taken during the 2014-2015 school year, and over 92% of our students earned a grade of a B or higher in our summer school courses this summer. I think that success of our students in the consortium is also evident in the fact that 764 full course credits have been awarded across the consortium, resulting in 1,528 successful course completions. And if you're wondering about District 203 in that, out of 355 students, and now some of our students have taken more than one online course, that's included in that 355, we have 352 completions of the courses. A huge celebration for our consortium leaders and teachers is that after several rejections, ELO is now an official provider of the NCAA core courses. The consortium now has 30 staff members across the 3 districts who have completed both the professional learning series and who have taught online. And for Naperville 203, 8 of those staff members are from our district. I am also very proud to share that 2 of our teachers served as lead teachers this summer, helping to support and mentor new ELO staff members. Lastly, you might remember in a previous report that Mr. Pigman and I shared that communication across the 3 districts was at times challenging, and that gathering student information was also challenging. So tonight, I think we're happy to report that systems for accessing student information have improved. We have collaborative processes for curriculum development, and the communication processes and collaborations have also been established to improve both the quality and the efficiency of the consortium services.
Thanks, Dr. Hester, and thank you to the board for allowing us to be here tonight. We're very excited to share these updates. Since, not counting the students enrolled presently this year, which we'll share shortly, since our inaugural launch, ELO has served over 1,560 students, including 355 of those students from District 203. And what's powerful and special for us to observe out of those 355 District 203 students is that they don't represent a single online learning profile, but rather represent a plethora and a wide diversity of profiles, including but not limited to athletes seeking professional status, or musicians, or dancers, ballet dancers, those with mild social or emotional adversities, those who are homebound or can't attend school for the full duration of the day due to severe medical limitations, those that are heavily consumed in school activities, clubs, governance, perhaps working part-time jobs, AP students, honor students, core level students, or simply those just looking to gain a slight edge on the competition by participating in an online course prior to college. And so I think that speaks to one of the big benefits of online learning, because it casts such a wide net, accommodating so many different students with where he or she each are at on their own academic journey. And so I'd like to thank you, the board, for your continued support in allowing us to serve those 355 students, along with a special thanks to Superintendent Bridges and his administrative team, especially Dr. Hester, for their leadership and vision and open collaboration with our 2 other member districts. We are very pleased with our first round of online summer school courses. Collectively, we served near 1,200 students, including roughly, 280 students from District 203, and we weren't surprised by these large volumes of enrollments based on past enrollment trends that students from across the consortium had participated in, primarily through past summer courses through for-profit providers such as Illinois Virtual School. And so we were thrilled to be able to bring those students back home to our own districts with our own teachers and our own curriculum. Shown on the screen in order, the 3 most popular courses that students enrolled in were Consumer Economics, Government, and Geometry, with District 203 having the largest population in geometry with 36 students. And it's also important to note that because of the consortium, we were able to accommodate the 11 students from District 203 in summer health, but also the 10 students from District 203 in music theory. Without students that expressed interest from the other districts, that wouldn't have warranted a large enough class size to run those courses. And so that's certainly a direct benefit of the consortium. We plan to begin preparing for Summer 2016 later this fall, and we certainly expect our Summer 2016 enrollment numbers to be similar to what they were this past summer. Presently, ELO is running 5 courses during this academic year, 2015-2016. We do offer 14 courses during the year where students may enroll in through their normal district's registration process. And although we had students express interest in all 14 courses, the classes shown on the screen are those that had enough interest to warrant running sections during the year with teachers. And again, important to note that 2 of those specific courses, health and video game design, where presently we serve 7 students from District 203 in health and 3 in video game design. And again, because of the benefits of the consortium with other students from other districts participating in those courses, we had enough capacity to warrant running a section. It's also important to note that District 203 did have close to 70 students register for a course this year. However, over 20 of those students, primarily in consumer economics, decided to take the course over the summer, which resulted in the 48 students that are left shown on the screen.
All right, so moving on to our future, in 2016-2017, ELO will be offering the same 14 courses that were offered last school year. So students will have the opportunity to enroll in those courses through their regular registration process. Notice I'm looking to our seniors to promote. All right. So while we have had many successes to celebrate with ELO, student enrollment during the 15-16 school year was lower than we had anticipated that it would be. And to address this challenge, the ELO leadership team and the governing board have been discussing the future of the consortium and strategies for growth. As for District 203, both the district and high school leaders have been engaging in deliberate and intentional actions to promote online learning for the 16-17 school year. Together, we are working and will continue to work with staff to provide an education about the value of online learning for college and career success, and to generate internal strategies for promoting course registrations. We'll also continue to examine other means for providing online and blended learning opportunities that are consistent with the efforts in our digital learning initiative and with our strategic blueprint commitments. We know that there are always teachers who are very engaging for our students, and those very engaging teachers make our courses attractive. And what we'd like to do is tap into the expertise of some of those teachers who have strong relationships with students to help us communicate the benefits of online learning. We need to identify teachers who are interested and in the online learning and provide them with the professional learning early so that they can begin the planning process. Additionally, we also know that student experience speaks volumes with their peers. We feel that our ELO students and parents can also help us to improve our course offerings, our course delivery, and to spread the word and promote the value of online learning. We already talked about summer school registration and that we were very pleased with that. Kip did mention that it did steal some of the enrollment from our from the school year's registrations. So we're going to continue to build on that success of summer school by supporting additional course offerings and promoting summer school early again. With the support of Mr. Osborne and Mrs. Willard, we'll also be looking into some ways to provide some blended opportunities or some different course opportunities through District 203 summer school. So with that, that concludes our presentation, and we will take any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Susan?
Do you think that requiring an online class would be something that we should talk about as a, as a skill set that students would need going forward?
I think it's a healthy conversation to be had. We've, from an operational standpoint, begun to have those conversations. If that's a recommendation we wanted to bring forward to you, and so in our conversations with the high school leadership, we've explored is that a direction we want to head. And Kip talked a little bit about the profile of the online learner. Is that our enrollment right now tells us there's not one single profile. But online learning right now may not necessarily be for everyone either. So we'll have to kind of talk about that, and if it's not for everyone, what situations exist or what supports are in place that would allow them to do that. For college and career readiness needs, the number of colleges now that are requiring certain courses online, I think it is something that we need to continue to look at.
So does the student's transcript reflect anything differently if they take this online?
Our course numbers and our course codes reflect that it's an online course.
But the grade points figured just the same way, and
Grade point is configured the same way.
exactly the same. Interesting. Okay.
Jackie?
I just had a question. Can you remind me what the numbers are that we can, what the max would be if everybody, you know, the people to my left and everybody decided to sign up? What would these numbers look like? Obviously, 204, you know, they're not twice as big. Their numbers are pretty impressive. Poor 200's trying to get it going in terms of the school year. The summer's a whole different ball of wax.
Right.
But I'm trying to figure out how to what were those numbers and what are you hoping? How are you hoping to get to those maximums?
It's 205, right? So for last school year, the number that we had hoped for the consortium, is that what you're talking about? The
Or
max?
for this year, or what is your target number? I don't think 48 or what is it?
No,
48
that was
or
not
39
a target
is our
number.
target, right?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead. So for the total consortium, and then
So we have the capacity to accommodate the way it's structured. Last year was structured tied to each district's enrollment.
Right.
And so with that being said, each district for last year was tied into a set amount of seats. And I believe District 203's would have been close to around 90 seats.
well, we were 90 seats for last year. The year before was. our
And we paid the
services
fees,
enrollment.
our administrative fees, based on the enrollment and based on that amount, right? Wasn't
Correct.
it? Yeah. It was proportionate.
We
So-
paid a one-time, it was supposed to be, we paid a fee that is divided among the three districts
Right.
evenly. And then we also had proportional expenses.
Okay.
So $85,000 for the one-time fee, which includes four main aspects. And then proportional, and the proportional costs were for professional learning and, I just forgot about the other one.
So as far as last year's concerned, all the expenses were, for the most part, equal in nature. The two expenses that were proportional in nature would have been for professional learning and professional consulting. The remaining expenses, learning management systems such as Canvas, technological tools, the ELO office personnel were split equally across the three districts, 33%.
And course content was the other one for our equal expenses.
Right. So I guess what I'm just trying to, so the number this year, you'd like to have it around 90.
We would have liked to have 90. So the first year, remember, we were setting targets without having students in place.
Right.
So for the consortium in general, it was around 205. And then moving to this school year, 15-16, we would have targeted around 90, 91. We have, I know there was a point too, when we first saw it, we had around 70 students enrolled. We tried to hit more of a target of 80. But then through the regular process of ads drops, that's when we dropped down to 48.
And you don't know what next semester looks like, right? Because these are semester classes that I'm looking at, right?
With the exception of U.S. history, and then we don't.
So for the spring semester, the only courses that we'll be running are video game design and the year-long U.S. history. All of the other courses are running just in the fall.
And how do the colleges look at that video game one? Huh? Maybe it's a legit class, right? Obviously, it's probably pretty quantitative. And I mean, I know there's colleges that have majors in it, so why can't high schools have classes? I'm super excited about it. I want to be, dollars are tight, and this is very expensive per class, per hour, and hopefully the numbers will go up,
Actually, Kevin was in.
If I may ask, are there any plans to expand ELO so that students can take it outside of their normal course load, or perhaps to add more honors and AP classes?
So we've had lots of conversations about different strategies that could be applied. That's one of the strategies that has come up in conversation, but no decisions or formal processes about that.
Presently, we do offer an AP Human Geography course. For this year, we had about 10 students express interest in that course across the consortium, but that wasn't enough to warrant running it during the school year.
I'd just like to say many of the students that I've talked to about this, I looked at it personally, would like to add it as an additional 8th course. Many students, especially AP and honors students, take courses outside of school through private providers. So I think there's a decent number of students that you could attract back to our own school district.
Good point.
I agree.
Of course you do.
Susan?
Well, I wanted to ask the students, Abby, have you heard about this? I mean, have you known students who've participated? Have you participated? What do you think of it? How does it sound to you? What have you heard?
I've taken online consumer economics, and just to address your comment, on my transcript it shows up as online hybrid consumer economics. So I enjoyed the class. It's a easy course, to be honest. So it was nice to not have to like sit through it, because I know a lot of my friends will sit through it and kind of do their other homework while the teacher's talking at them. But I see the counterpoints where like it might be difficult for some students to take it, because you have to be motivated, you have to be willing to read the passage. You can't just kind of like skip to the end, skip to the questions at the end. And I know my parents were very concerned because I could Google the answers to the questions rather than actually learn them and absorb the material. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah. Thank you.
I have not taken an online course, but several of my friends have. They just did it privately, since the classes weren't offered through ELO, and they were able to do it an additional course on top of their normal course load. So
when does the class conducted? Is there a class conducted? Does it depend on the class?
Yeah, for example, BYU and Illinois Virtual offer classes that give you kind of a wide range of times to complete it. So like the homework's due at the end of the week, and lectures are videotaped and then posted, so students can view them at their own pace.
Oh, okay.
So it's not there's one specific time that the teacher is giving the lecture. There may be a specific time where you can ask them questions, but you don't have to be present at that time.
Is that how we do it as well?
That's a great question. And one of the primary differences between the online ELO courses and those such as from other for-profit providers is many of those courses are self-paced in nature, and they have rolling fluid enrollments where students can enroll at multiple times throughout the school year. And the advantage of that is students can progress through at a self-pace, but the disadvantage of that is it lacks in the collaboration with other peers and the instructors. And that's kind of what makes the ELO courses unique, is that authentic collaboration where we have multiple levels of engagement, where it's not just learner and content, such as through those self-paced courses, but it's learner and content, peer-to-peer, instructor-to-peer, and peer-to-instructor.
Question was asked about student feedback on the courses. I know we've surveyed students. Do you maybe want to hit some of the highlights on what the student voice says are some of the strengths, and then maybe some of the areas for opportunity for improvement?
Sure. The feedback is different when you compare the students that participated in the summer compared to the school year, because that was kind of a set of different learner profiles. We polled the students after the summer courses, and the top 2 reasons why students participated in a summer course, number 1 was it allowed them to free up more room during the school year to take additional courses that they would choose. And the second reason was it accommodated their obligations they had over the summer, which prevented them from attending a face-to-face course. All of the feedback, whether it was during the summer or during the year, was very, very positive in relation to our teachers. The instructor response time was phenomenal. The feedback was phenomenal, things of that nature. And so the instructor-specific feedback was outstanding. As far as constructive criticism over the summer, the number 1 piece was, is there value in extending our current length, which is 17 days, longer, to provide students a little bit more flexibility over the summer. And the reason why we chose 17 days over the summer was twofold. One, that's the same duration that most face-to-face summer courses run, 4 days a week, 3 days a week. And 2, one of our partner districts, District 204, has offered online courses over the summer in the past, and they also did it for 17 days. And so it was just kind of a natural starting point for us. but that's certainly something we're going to look at and explore. Is there value in extending beyond the 17-day duration?
Anybody else? Any questions? Kristen?
Thanks for the summary. That it sounds like you have so many challenges and opportunities, and it's really interesting to hear about them. Just looking at 204 and their numbers, do they require that people take online courses, or no? They do?
They do not require it. None of our current member districts require students to take an online course. It is interesting, though, to note that 5 current states throughout the country do require learners to take an online course in order to graduate. That's a state-level policy. Certainly, there are many districts that have taken that policy upon themselves, but at the state level, there are 5 states, and that number is expected to increase.
It's just interesting. They might do you collaborate about strategies in terms of
We do. We've collaborated quite a bit. I don't want to speak for another district. I do know that their enrollment varies by high school, but they have shared many of their strategies, and some of those would include making sure that they get the teachers who they have teachers in the different departments who teach it who have actually gone and promoted the courses and supported it. I think one of their strategies is that for a long time, as Kip said, they had the summer school online courses, so students were used to sign. So the idea of online wasn't as new, and had it's just an extension then to think about doing that in the school year. And then some of the strategies come as well through the communication. We all moved from enrolling students after registration had happened in the first year to enrolling students through our natural registration process this year. And I think we've learned about some of their strategies and conversations, through that enrollment process. So we'll continue to collaborate with them on ideas and then generate more of our own as well.
Have you set the courses for summer school yet, or are they the same as the ones for 2016?
We have not set them yet,
Okay,
but
I just
we
wanted-
have, we have the potential to make them the same or expand.
And what about, I know we're still in the learning process and still getting everything up and running, but what about expanding to junior high? I remember you talked a little bit about when you were thinking about even looking at that, and maybe it's still too early. I couldn't remember your time
No,
frame.
that's still in the guiding principles for the consortium and something that we speak about often. Everybody has needs that have been expressed at the junior high level, and I think it's that we have put a lot of energy and effort into making what's going on at high school successful.
Right.
That for the time that the leaders can get together across the 3 districts, which is very regularly actually, the conversations have really focused on high school.
Question, Mike? Your hand was up. There you go.
Thank you for the briefing. It was wonderful. And 2 questions. One, I wanted to follow up on some of the other questions about what Kevin brought up about overloading. I don't know if that's a high school term or if it's a college term. My question is, what do the kids do now during the school year? Since they're not allowed to take an extra course, do they have a period off during the day? I mean, you may have covered this in the past couple of years, but I don't remember it. So
Sure. So each district kind of sets it up differently. Speaking specifically to District 203, the majority of students that take an ELO course, they might have an early release, they might have a late start, or they might have a study hall during the day where they could choose to use the time to work on their online class, but certainly they don't have to. They have that self-autonomy to work on the course, whether it's at school, at home, during the school day, on the weekends, at night. And that certainly also speaks to a lot of the positive feedback we've heard from the students is it gives them a little bit more control and flexibility compared to the face-to-face counterpart.
yeah, because I was thinking, if late start or early release were a definite option, I would think it would get a lot more people interested. But anyway, my other question was, I heard you talking about, and I don't want to misquote you, but moving more towards blended or something more about blended in the future. And I wanted to come back because we talked about this a couple of years ago. What now that we've been doing it for a while, I consider this, an online course. Obviously, not a pure one because there is a teacher involved and you do have collaboration. But I just wanted to hear what you think about what blended would look like in the future now that you've just generically had some time to look at it and as we progress.
So what it could look like would be an option where students might attend a course face-to-face for 3 days a week, or for let's say 3 periods a week. And then they might have 2 periods where they are actually working on their course content and self-managing that. So they could do that when their course is scheduled, when the face-to-face times were scheduled, or they could choose maybe to work on other homework or other assignments and then work on that course while they're at home. So you could also imagine something where maybe you flip that, so it's either 3 days a week in the face-to-face and 2 days where they self-pace and manage their own time, or 2 days face-to-face with teacher, and then possibly 3 days where they would manage their own time, or 3 periods. So that's one option. Other options would be to actually blend some content within the course. So if they're face-to-face for 4 days, then they might have where they're actually going and reporting in that face-to-face environment, but there's a little bit more control. Another way is that the content itself is actually, let's say, adaptive. So that after you, which takes you out of a synchronous session, so where after you are successful with one piece of content, you might then move on to another while your peers are sitting beside you or with you, and they may not be moving on to that same content.
Okay, that last one was actually the one I'd always understood to be blended. And I understand why the other ones would be called blended also, but that environment would be where everyone would have their Chromebook open, right, and the teacher could actually monitor from the front and see who's having trouble, because it's all on the right, on their screen, and they can go over to Johnny or Sue and go, hey, you need a little help, or Johnny and Sue can go, hey, but they're progressing at their own rates in the classroom, so to speak, and but you are considering that maybe down the road as being an option.
Right, and I'll just go back and say for blended, some of the things to consider are, first of all, a portion of the content has to be delivered online, mm-hmm, and then a portion is not delivered online.
Right.
And then, the factors that that you control to blend are time, the pace, the place that they learn, and then the pathway, so when they would move on to the next step.
Okay, fascinating. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's already happening in some of our classes, at least from what I've observed, like with an AP computer science, where there are in the classroom, students are working at a different level, and that teacher is able to see where they're at and do exactly what you just said. I think that's, maybe not in all the courses, but in some of our classes that's happening. And then what I didn't hear for the blended learning, which I think is happening too, is, and I hesitate to use the wording because I know some teachers, wouldn't necessarily call it that, but in a sense, the flipped classroom, where they're doing their learning of material online via video at home, even though they're in the classroom 5 days a week with the teacher. It's changed the learning dynamic a little bit. Right. I would call that blended as well.
It is.
Correct?
It's
okay.
one of the models for blended learning.
Okay. So those are two things I think that we have
right,
going on.
So if you even look in our elementary classrooms, where some of them are really experimenting with rotation, all the kids are still there. We're not sending our elementary kids home. But they are definitely rotating, and in some cases they're rotating within the 4 walls of the classroom, and in other cases they're rotating within the 4 walls of the classroom and then possibly out in the LRC, mm-hmm, or in another teacher's classroom.
Mm-hmm. And then on a different note, I had other ideas that I wanted to share, but the fact that you have become official provider for NCAA core courses is a huge thing. I don't know if everyone in the room realizes how big that is, because some of the other online opportunities that you spoke about are not, and students find that out after they've taken those courses. So that should be a selling point for you as well, that's something that those other providers don't do. So thank you. I know that was probably not easy to come by, so thank you for that. And then the only other thing I wanted to share was, I think that some misconceptions that I've heard from both students and staff, and I asked the question in an email, but is the number of students that are in these classes? I think there's a misconception out there that like we've set, what I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we've set the cap at the same thing that we do for our regular classrooms. I think that there is a misconception out there, and I'd love to hear if the students like have heard that or not, but that because it's online, you know, there might be 45, 50 students in a classroom, and I think that there's some staff concerned about that from what I've heard as well, because that creates a different environment. So
we've heard that as well, and our cap is 27. The
Okay.
agreement across the 3 districts.
Are you guys, have you heard anything in regard to that? Because I think that can be a deterrent and cause our numbers to go down.
I personally haven't ever heard anything from the students that said that, and I don't necessarily, especially if it's like strictly online, I don't know if that would deter students.
I would agree with that. I haven't heard of anybody talking about it or being concerned with it. So.
Any other questions from the board? All right, excellent report, and look forward to more progress in the future.
Okay, thanks for being here tonight. We'll invite Brad and Steve to come forward now. Our next update is related to facility master planning. So Steve and Brad are here tonight to present an update to the Board of Education. We're fortunate in this district that our work and our look at facilities is an ongoing regular process, and that we're able to put attention toward our facilities annually. It certainly prevents us from finding us in situations of disrepair or too many crisis issues. Again, this is tied to our strategic blueprint. We're going to go through and kind of give you an update on things that were accomplished during the past year, and also things that are coming ahead for us. Congratulations, I think, are in order to Steve and his team. And you as a board, this district, we spend a lot of time and a lot of focus on ensuring that we have clean, safe, and well-maintained learning facilities for all of our students. And the capital improvement projects, both that we have completed and those that we have identified for some future work, are all directly or indirectly related to that idea of improving the learning environment. We have some forward-thinking issues here that we're bringing before you. Again, there's no action on these that are before you now. As we bring projects for completion forward to you, the board will always have opportunity to act on those specific plans. You've been provided with a report also, and you have not had time to go through it thoroughly. So we'll look at this as an update and then identify potential other time to come back and report to maybe some specific questions within the report that you've been provided. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve and let him begin with providing an overview of some of the projects that were completed during the last year.
Okay, thank you. You see a picture here of BB's boiler room. This is the old boiler that was in there. Oh. Okay, go ahead. There it is. It was old. It's been there for quite some time. Took up a lot of room, and we replaced it with 2 energy efficient condensing boilers. The nice thing about these is they're about 15% more energy efficient, but we probably, for most of the winter, only need one of these to warm the building. So we have some redundancy there. They probably would both be operating below 10 to 15 degrees. So most of the winter you could get by with just one of them. So there's going to be some energy savings there. Besides replacing the boiler, we put in a new energy management system. So it's all set to go, and it's plan on it working just perfectly. Here you see some footing foundations going in at Jefferson. They excavated, this is actually a flower bed or a planter bed up in front, and there they are working on some more. There's a base of the flagpole there. Here they're starting to erect the structure for the canopy out front. We did these improvements. As you can see, we made a vestibule window. So there's a transaction window in the vestibule itself. So people coming into the building can interact with the office. If they need to get into the building, they are then buzzed past the interior doors to have access. And there's the finished product. Turns out looking pretty nice, if I do say so myself. So, Kingsley, this is a vacuum truck. Kingsley's roof is basically like a swimming pool liner that's up there, and they lay rocks on top of it to keep it from blowing away. And that's the type of roof it is. So there it is. It's completed. It's all up. It's all brand new. Should go for another 25 years or more. So good roof. These are a picture of the fan walls at Washington and Madison. They used to have the flak fans. They're like jet engines basically in there. Or axle fans are called. The problem with those was there's two of them, and each one controlled half of the building. So if one of them went down, you lost everything. They're very difficult to maintain, hard to get anybody to work on them. So we put in these fan walls. There's actually 12 individual fans that make up the same amount of air pressure as those two flak fans did. So if you lose one, you probably won't even notice it in the classroom. And the motors on these and stuff, there's not a whole lot of moving parts. You can go to your Granger or somebody like that and pick up the parts and probably have it repaired in a day. So Central, because of the change in curriculum, we're needed to add more chemistry labs, so there wasn't a lot of renovation necessary, but to convert the existing chemistry labs, we added some islands that have sinks and faucets and gas in them. There's actually 4 islands and a fume hood. I think that's about all we added to each of the 2 classrooms that were there. So it was a pretty easy project. Now north, that was a little more involved. We had some old classrooms old science rooms that needed complete renovation. They were turned into chemistry labs too. Took a lot. We took them down to the bare walls and started new. So turned out pretty nice. It's a little different configuration. It has the sinks and gas ports around the exterior of the room, and they have cord reels hanging from the ceiling for bring power down to the individual tables. So turned out very nice. This is a penthouse up on top of Naperville North High School. Inside of it was located 2 big air handling units. They were difficult to maintain because there was actually no room in there. In order to get to some of the equipment, you had to climb up over the top of the ductwork and make your way to the back in order to get to belts and motors that were located in the back end. So it was original equipment, so since 1972, so it's been there for a while. This is a new air handling unit that's been brought in, sitting on a truck. In order to, because the location of the penthouse is kind of in the middle over the top of the library, it's too far for a crane to reach, so the fastest and most economical means of getting the equipment in there was by helicopter. So the helicopter came in, and there was 13 picks that they made. They picked them up, and they dropped them right through the roof of the penthouse, put them on wheels, rolled them out of the way, and in 20 minutes they had it all up there. So it's quite an operation. And when it was all done, it's all assembled. Now there's only 1 air handler up there. Efficiency, we improved about 40% over the existing equipment that was up there. So it was a good project, running well. So.
Okay.
Very good.
As Superintendent Bridges mentioned in his introduction, this master facility plan is a culminating event of about 3-year-long process. This forward-thinking plan ensures that we will meet the emerging instructional needs of the district. The plan is data-driven to ensure the effective use of district resources to make the appropriate improvements at the correct time. The Comprehensive Facility Assessment Review, roofing was a separate, but otherwise went through all the facilities, took about 9 months to complete. It included all the facilities except for Ann Reed Center, and some of Central High School was excluded because of the recent remodeling there. The review broke down or identified about $43 million worth of potential projects, and they rated those into a 1 to 4 scale, 1 being the worst and 4 requiring no action. You can see here that we had about 1% needed immediate action, which we've already done. Rating 2, we had 8.3 million or 19%, and then finally the bulk, 79%, is in that 6 to 10 year range. This is where we'd want them to be. This is a breakdown of the work identified, the 43 million worth of potential projects. As you can see there, the largest is what we call the MEP, or mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. This is due to the fact that a lot of our facilities have original mechanical equipment in there, and so with aging it does need to be replaced, or because of the size of the facility needs to be upgraded. Examples of interior work, we have 38% or 16 million. This would be like bathroom remodels, floor replacement, door hardware, and as Steve already said, science labs. As far as the mechanical, that'd be lighting, electrical service upgrades, or temperature control upgrades, along with furnaces and etc. So as far as prioritizing and implementation of this, of course, these were consistent with the community engagement inputs, which was to first, entrance enhancements, second, for a learning environment flexibility, and finally to provide for all-day kindergarten. So we took those priorities and we broke that down into a manageable 5-year capital improvement plan, which we provided in your package, which we outlined the actual projects we will be doing. And then, we have an ongoing $7 million budget that we are making those projects with. As far as enhanced entrances that we're working on, for 16-17 school year, we will be working on Ellsworth, Highlands, Naper, and Naperville North High School. As far as flexible learning environments, we will continue to update and reconfigure LRCs as they come on the schedule, mobile, classroom furniture, and space collaborations. We also, part of this project was the prototype furniture project, which was a very exciting project that we engaged in. It did have an impact on our learning environment, which we provided in your package, the testimonial or video that you saw from the kids. In addition to that, we did survey students regarding what they felt the impact of that program was. We had, as you can see there, 77% of the third graders reported that they liked their classroom. 76% of fifth graders said they were excited to come to school and learn. And finally, almost 64% of the students said they really appreciated the changes that we had made to the LRCs. For the 2016 through 2020, we have, as I mentioned, your details in your packet, but we have plans for enhanced entrances, updating and mechanical, electric, and plumbing, roofing, HVAC, energy efficiencies, ongoing maintenance, and annual building improvement modifications. So with that, we will answer any questions that the board would have.
Any questions, Jackie?
I have a couple questions. Thank you. I think I've been waiting quite a while for this report, and I appreciate the book that Dan and Terry got to us here. And I'd love to review it. I did go back to, in February, our last facilities update was in February, on our meeting on the 17th of February. And there was quite a discussion about Naperville North. And I guess what I would like to ask my colleagues, I'm interested in maybe asking you to go, Dan, you or your staff to go back, not right now. There's a number of things that were going to be done with North. There are some community members that are following some of the things that are going to be done. They're in the building all the time. I was a little surprised. They have swimmers that are there. I guess Maverick swims there. Somebody. They're very familiar with the building. But a couple of things. Bathrooms were a big concern of theirs. That are on the first floor. I don't know if Abby knows of these. They had quite detailed explanations about what they looked like, and also the portables. We've talked a lot about those, and I don't see that in the report today, but I would certainly be interested if, when you come back and talk about whatever's in the book.
Yeah, we can do that.
Great.
Just to address a couple of those things, so that conversations have been ongoing. Entrance enhancement is something that has been prioritized for sure. And when you talk about entrance enhancements, really what we're talking about is creating a forced interaction among guests at our schools, in identifying those schools where that doesn't take place. And so this would be one where we need to have an improvement there. We have done a lot of the ongoing. I think, and Steve, I think this is the best way to explain it. Although some of the cosmetic things have not been addressed recently, although some have, a lot of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing in many cases is as new as the other facility, and we've been working on that. In the
And
mobiles,
that just doesn't get all it doesn't get all the
right.
press, unfortunately.
Right, exactly.
They didn't see the helicopter.
The mobile is one that, now that we have data and projections on student enrollment, and then also the addition and the implementation of our one-to-one initiative, is going to allow us to really look at space and how it's used differently at North. And I expect that we'll be able to address that. The principal and I have had a conversation about being able to do that as well. So we will go into more detail with that. I think that's absolutely worthwhile. A lot of the things also will be addressed through the annual building improvements and modifications. So within our $7 million annual budget, there's about $2 million every year that Steve works with the building principals and identifies priority projects. So I think we can get a little bit more into that as we move through.
I think as you look back at the minutes too, Fifth Avenue property, there's always been there's been a lot of conversations of what might go in there, and the transportation office building. I think when I think of a master facilities update, I'm kind of thinking of, Brad put this in as a thing, there's 22 buildings and then a whole upteen other number of buildings that are all included. I guess that is more of a holistic look that I kind of wanted to see. So, and again, I don't know what's in exactly.
Yeah, we'll
what's in this folder.
have a chance to look at that, and then maybe generate some questions, and then we'll come back at a time to provide a little bit more specific detail at some of our facilities.
Oh, and I guess what I'm thinking, if we can do that, like in the next meeting, we're not waiting 6 more months, right? There's not like another update coming.
We'll meet and see when would be a good time to be able to come back to be able to answer your questions.
Great, thanks.
So on your slide with the entrance enhancements, and you have 2016, 2017. I don't know what slide that is. Maybe 40. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, 49. Thanks. It doesn't. I guess I just got the book, so I'm looking at the book, and on page 13 of the book is supposed to be main entrance enhancements, and we have Ellsworth done already, correct? Is Ellsworth done already?
No.
Oh.
That's for 16, 17.
Okay, because it says in this book that it was completed this last summer, so I just wanted to make sure that I understood.
I think there might be a time difference between, this is more up to date.
Right. Okay. Okay. So then next year is Ellsworth. So the slide is correct, is what you're right? So
Correct.
Napier is not completed.
The slide is correct. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Susan?
Dan, when we redid Central, we had talked about what North would look like going forward. So when you're in that building and you visit, say, their LRC, for example, that space can't possibly be used the same way it used to a long time ago. How are you reimagining those spaces to move the building into 2020?
The staff has already begun to look at that, and some of the furnishings and equipment that are in the library now have been moved to try to reconfigure into a different type of space. Again, in a walkthrough with Principal Posey, she's identified that as an area of opportunity also, and has thoughts about how they can reimagine and rethink that space. Again, that would be addressed through our annual building improvements and modifications.
So when you look at stuff, Steve, and look at that the buildings have an average age of 42 years, that was in our report. Is that a concern? Is that, it's like, is the wall rebuilt so the wall's not really 42 years old? How do you, from the day it was built, how do you figure those things out? And, I just never want to be in the situation again like we were with Central, where it's just being held together with tarps and rubber bands. It was just amazing. I just never want to to put us, I don't think one school should be great and one school should be dated. I mean, it's like they should both stay current.
The comprehensive facility report is almost 400 pages long. It goes through every building other than ECC. And in that, it not only goes through every building separately, it goes through every addition separately. So.
And what's the date on that? What are you working
This is 2013.
October, yeah, 13. So it identifies the equipment, it gives us the age, and by looking at this, we can gauge, a boiler should last 40 years. HVAC, depending on the type of equipment, you should get 30, 40 years out of it. A roof,
I guess I'm asking, so like if you look at Napier, that was built in what year? Ish.
1928.
Okay, so do you count it as, 85, do you count it as a building that we're looking to come, up on 100 years? Like, do you say that's a 100-year-old building or that's an 86-year-old building?
That's correct.
But you've rebuilt the front or you've redone the roof. I mean, is it really? I mean, that's what
kind of the I'm trying to think if I can think of I understand the question that you're asking. And I would say in most cases, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing in most of our buildings either have been updated or improved or are on schedule to be when appropriate. I think BB's boilers were their original boilers. Is that correct?
No.
No?
The original ones were oil.
Okay, all right, good point.
They were replaced ones.
So the operational life of our buildings probably is much younger than 43 years.
Right.
For the 43 years actually is the original construction of each building without the additions and when that occurred, and that's the average age for that. So yes, with Napier and Ellsworth being built in 1928, and then buildings built more recently, that's what you get to the average of the 43.
Okay.
Jackie?
Can I just ask one more follow-up question? So what I'm trying to figure out, so my adopted school was Washington, that I went in the first day of school. And I'm sure I know there are phenomenal things going on in there. There are some things that are a little bit dated, and not that everybody's not making them work. I don't see them on the schedule. I know we're not keeping things because we want them on a time capsule. Are there things that need to be done that we as a board need to be, the world is different. We used to have money to say, these all have to be updated. Now there's uncertainty, there's property tax freezes perhaps out there and other constraints. So what I'm trying to do, I saw 2 LRCs that were in our Lincoln and Madison were in with the furniture, where I would think somebody would be clamoring to say, hey, what about me? But it's the master facilities plan, but it's not in here and it's not in here. So help me.
We haven't done that building by building like that. What you'll see in the report is there's a summary of areas of opportunities for each facility toward the back of the report that you have. LRC is identified in many of them. So we go back to kind of what some of our priorities are, and like you said, we really deal with about $7 million every year.
Okay.
And our first priority to address the issue and the concern brought up by Board Member Crotty is some mechanical, electrical, plumbing, in general, building condition work that we have to do to ensure that buildings don't operate according to their birth age. They operate a little bit more efficiently. Currently, our second priority has been to address the idea of that forced interaction in our buildings and get that scheduled into the work. From there, we've got also the roofing projects and other things that have been identified, and that takes care of about $5 million of our $7 million budget. And then annually, Steve visits each of our facilities and meets with staff at the building to identify areas of priority within that $2 million. It really has to be spread among our 22 facilities.
Can't go far.
Right. And so usually it's going to be incremental. So, for example, prototype furniture. Because of the other priorities that we have, the building condition, the entry enhancements, we've informed principals and Steve that in their normal cycle within that building improvement and modification budget, as they're prepared and ready, they can make those upgrades using furniture that falls kind of within the prototype work that we did. And then so principals now will identify areas of priority for them within the building and how they work. And at Washington, Mr. Vogel has identified the library as a place that he would be interested in talking with Steve about opportunity for improvement.
Okay, I think it's getting more clear to me now, because the back of the report, thank you, it's also dated 13. So this is what feeds into that. I'm just trying to get a overall flavor. So I'll look at this, and that feeds into that, and then these are the highlights. So, thank you.
If I could just make sure of something.
Sure.
Jackie, this report?
I'm sorry?
This report you said was dated?
13, yeah. All these comments about all
Oh,
the wish
the-
lists and
There's
all
reference
That's
to
from
a
the
previous
original one.
assessment,
Okay.
data collection and facility assessment that's referenced in the back of that.
Okay,
Yeah,
this
but
was
the
modified in
point-
15.
The point is, these are things that were identified in 13.
No, I see it.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're identified in 13. Maybe some have been done, maybe some of them haven't been. And this report, yeah, okay, so.
I think the question I'm hearing is, how do we arrive at these priorities? And what I heard part of the answer, in generally it was the future focus and that stuff. How did that break down more specifically into, I don't want to pick on one school, but, this school got an LRC, but this one didn't, even though they were both identified. Where was that decision made? Well, this one's a lot more money and we don't have that much money. Was it resource limitations? Was it space limitations? Does it vary?
Yeah, I think as you say, it varies. We identified like the prototype areas for work based on staff, I think, that would support the initiative. Places where we saw as the best opportunity for improvements, a need for improvement. So when we look at the two libraries that have been updated, both Jefferson and Beebe, there were a number of factors that went into that decision.
But that was part of the pilot, right? Those were just the selected sites. So I think, as I understood it, as LRC furniture is wearing out, all the LRCs would be looking at potentially prototype, right?
And that's going to take
as it wears
over
out in the
time.
normal cycle.
Correct.
Right?
Over
And
time.
classrooms too, like as we have desks that are
Over time, correct. Mm-hmm.
Donna?
Okay, so again, I think I'm going to reiterate what Mike just said. As far as I think my concern as I look through this are the priorities. I love all the work in detail and everything we've put into it. Thank you. It's the first time that we've had a chance to look kind of at the priorities, and I understand that future focus is driving it, but when I look at some of the front entryway improvements, like a couple of the schools are not scheduled until after, like the last one that we have in our schedule is 2020, and then there's a couple that will be after that, if I'm reading it correctly. I guess I want to understand, and it doesn't have to be answered here.
Well, I can partially address some of that right now. And what Steve has to do is look at the overall amount of work that we have to do within the building, within the budget that we have, with a focus first on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and other operational things that have to be done to ensure that the buildings are operating at their highest level of efficiency now and into the future. From there, then, it's what is left in the pot of money, so to speak, and identifying projects that can be completed within that budget. And that's why you see some of the projects that may be more extensive are coming at times when we have less mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work that have to be scheduled. Partnering and pairing some up when we're going to have a little bit more flexibility, or the project itself is not going to be too expensive. Beebe is a great example. Beebe was not a significantly huge project that we had to take on to be able to ensure that we had the forced interaction vestibule at Beebe. So that's really what goes into the part of what goes into the timing. And so when you have a number of facilities that are really in the same state, and you can't say one's more important than the other, it's how does the work that needs to be done, how does that relate to, or how is that impacted by other work? And when we think about some of these entry enhancements at some of the other facilities, as you read through the report, we'll be able to address potentially other issues or other priorities that are identified as well in terms of how we're going to be able to get the forced vestibule, which may allow us to rethink how we use kindergarten classroom space, for example, or create more flexible space within the school that can address one of our other priorities.
Anybody else?
I guess what I just would like, I guess I don't have a full handle on the whole master facilities plan. So BB's going to have the entryway enhancement.
BB has it.
BB has it.
Again, the entry enhancement is to ensure that there's a forced interaction when a visitor comes into the school. There was a space modification that was done over the summer, okay? That when you walk through the
I was
first
just in
two,
BB
yes,
on
you
the
are.
first day
Yep.
of school.
Yep. And then when you walk past the mural,
Right.
the transaction counter, there's a new set of doors that prohibits you from moving forward into the main part of the building without first having a forced interaction with staff.
I look at like a Mill Street as, or a Prairie, those you go into the office. You're not saying this entrance doesn't put you into the office necessarily, correct?
It puts you right at the transaction counter at the main office. So when you walk through the front two doors, the front vestibule,
I
soon
know
as
there's
you're
double
buzzed in,
doors.
right?
I know there's double
And then
doors,
when
but
you're
I
past
don't
the second
remember
set of
like
doors,
anything going on in those double doors. Kind
there-
of like River
well,
Roads.
it's because there has been a change. Okay, so that when
Okay.
you walk through those double doors,
You need to be more observant.
yeah,
I'm okay
when you
with
when you
that.
walk through the double doors,
I'm okay.
you are then in an area that requires a forced interaction before. Is it a buzzer system that then lets you through the next set of doors? So you can't be buzzed into the main part of the building until you've had an interaction with staff to state your purpose. And to also, now that we have it in the elementary schools, I believe we've begun the rollout of Raptor at the elementary schools now, and so that you'll present your state identification, so you can't go past there without that
And
forced
I'm
interaction.
sure on the first day of school, there was a volunteer sitting there, moving people because it was kindergarten preview.
Kindergarten
So
preview,
great.
so a
I
lot of in
get
and
it.
out, yep.
But yeah, I guess I would love to understand, much of this is 13. So what do we need to do? We have $2 million to spend over 22 buildings. That's not a lot of money.
No.
What is needed for the truly needed for delivery of education? Because some of the things I think your principals are advocating. So,
Yep, we can identify this. Yep.
but where we need to come in, that would be interesting. So,
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. It says for the entrance enhancements that Naperville North would be on one, but from my understanding is that like the forced entrance thing, like we already have to have that.
Yeah. One thing that's different about North is that if you think about walking through the front door, there is no vestibule. There's no double set of doors. Okay. So that also creates some environmental, I don't want to say environmental issues, I guess, but energy issues. So that's why we're looking specifically there. You're right. There is an interaction with the campus supervisors at that door, but there's only one set of doors by which a visitor or a guest has to go through. So this school, compared to, say, Central, where there is a vestibule, which helps support that energy efficiency, and then also the desk with the campus supervisors, that's the difference.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. Mike?
Just trying to get these dates straight, because the way I understood it, the 2013 was that base telephone book that Steve was showing us, and this was based on that. But has this been, and that's all good, that's all well and good, but the CIP also took into account the master planning assessment and data collection review and the master planning analysis and implementation reviews from 2014 and 2015. So there's not necessarily a 2-year lag in this. It's all this information we've been gathering, with White and everybody walking through the buildings, is constantly changing this CIP, or it has changed it?
Well, I
or-
think we look at the capital improvement project as something that is, it has to be a flexible changing document.
Okay.
It has to be because, for example, now, I don't know the numbers yet, but we recently had a water break, so we had emergency work that had to be performed at a school.
Hey, that comes out of the $2 million.
Well, but the point is that there
Work it out.
potentially could be other things that occur that would totally impact our 5-year plan. So it has to be something that is ongoing and changing.
Because, and I basically assume that. I don't mind the plan, and I didn't hear you ask for inputs on the plan, but the thing is, if, as one of my colleagues said, I forget which one, but we all know something's coming, if we have a property tax freeze and a pension cost shift and who knows what else, this is something that will probably be looked at. But the way it's formatted, we have the option of going, okay, 7, we got to save $2 million. Okay, here's $5 million. Rework the priorities. So I like the way it's formatted, And a lot of this stuff was done without us being in the loop. I'm not saying we had to, but it helps to understand what the process was. So.
Any other questions? So there's a couple of ages you watch in the building, right? There's the physical age of the building and the exterior, right, which would include the windows.
Right.
There's a roofing that is tracked separately, right, because that ages and so forth. And then there's the mechanical infrastructure.
Correct.
And all those are important to the learning environment. So in order of priority on the annual assessment, you're looking on keeping the buildings warm, safe, and dry, right, so that learning can continue regardless of what's happening. And then the other enhancements are what follow after that.
That's correct. We have over 2 million square feet of roofing, and it's on 323 different roofs. So $1 million will get you...
Maybe one roof. One roof at Central, maybe.
Yeah. So it every year you see roofing on here. That's because every year we need to do roofing.
So you have a complex job, and it's good you have the facilities report to help you out, but you're still a very active manager, right, in the whole thing each year, going through and assessing and so forth. And it's a compliment that, I think that we've got a good person here in charge and certainly got an effective program, and the buildings are well maintained. So we're fortunate.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Six 6.07, we're required by law to present at a Board of Education meeting the previous year's administrator and teacher compensation report and then post it on our website. It's available there for your review. Questions?
Any questions on the report?
I have a question. So it's a little bit different this year because we're offering different insurance packages. Could you go through that maybe a little more? There's some low outliers and some high outliers. What would affect those?
So I'll ask Carol to chime in and help if I don't get this all specifically right. But again, there are 3 different plans, a variety of plans, and then the cost of those plans are different. Carol, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That column that you're looking at there on the benefits, it actually includes the medical, dental insurance, life, disability, any type of administrator, Social Security and Medicare, vehicle allowance. And yes, it's true that this report for compensation actually would be compensation for 14-15. And that was the first year that we actually introduced 3 different health plans. And there are different costs associated with those. And that's why you'll see the variation in the cost. You won't see anything consistent there. And of course, there's no percentage that you can say allocate directly to the salary. If someone is earning, say, a lower salary, the cost of the insurance or any of those benefits does not correlate directly as a percentage of salary. So then you'll have family and single coverage as well.
Single spouses, right.
And then there are some people who don't even take the insurance.
So there's some that are like 25 to 30% when you look at that. Why are some so high?
Well, it's a function of whether you have family insurance.
Can I ask for clarity?
Okay.
Percentage of their salary?
Percentage of their salary.
Okay, yeah. Again, because it's not based off of a percentage of the salary. It's based off the cost of the plan. So
I guess my question is, how do we rein in those ones that are really high to make them more affordable? Because, I mean, there's some outliers on there.
I'll have to ask you to give us some time to give some thought to that.
Okay.
Like $33,000. Good idea.
Any other questions? Okay.
6.08 also annually we make available to the community the list of instructional resources that have been approved by the board and are available. This also will be posted on our website. Jane's here. She'll answer any questions that you may have.
Kristen?
I just have a question about the resources. Just a good opportunity to ask a question that I get sometimes a little bit about spelling, because I noticed I'm just pulling up kindergarten,
Okay.
looking at Lucy Calkins, and I know there's the words their way. So I get some questions from people about the spelling changes, like how we used to have the lists and now we have it's just a different way, and that I know it's part of the words your way. And I just wondered if you could explain for us the difference there and why this works better and why we change.
Yeah, in the past, we would have one list for all students. When we look at the words their way, it is based on an inventory that's given to students, and then what happens then is that they are put in their instructional level based on that assessment. So with words their way, we can respond better to their level within the word study, and so they'll progress over time through K to third grade, and then in fourth and fifth, we also use it for certain students that would fall within a range within that benchmark assessment.
So instead of having like the little list that has second grade and the hard word is vegetable or whatever, you have the lists that go to what they already know how to spell.
Meets the needs of the student.
Mm-hmm. And then do you work on that only in the class, or do you send home any of those lists on with your students to say, okay, even though there's going to be 30 different lists or 25 different lists, that they're working on this particular thing, or is it more of a class-based instruction?
Both, actually. And when we look at the different types of groups, you usually in one grade level would maybe have 5 different groups of levels. And so they do that within their classroom environment. They do some with the teacher, they do some independently, and then those are also sent home that they do at home on their own or with a parent.
Thank you. That's a very helpful explanation of words their way.
Okay, great.
That's all we have.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on then to President's Report. And we did have another board self-evaluation. The Board of Education has concluded the self-evaluation process and will move forward with internal changes that will refine functionality and effectiveness. Board reports? We'll put it in writing later. Yeah. We'll post it tomorrow. Board of Education reports? Kristen?
Were you going to report a tiny bit about the legislative breakfast?
I could do that, sure. As you know, last Friday, in collaboration with Districts 200 and 204, we hosted our second annual legislative breakfast, where we invited legislators to represent the 3 school districts to come speak with us and our community about action and potential action in Springfield that may have an impact on our district, but also an opportunity to which I think we've talked about maybe having more of an opportunity to hear from us about things that that are important to us that we'd like to get their opinions on. But I thought it was informative, and it was clear that they each understand our needs when they're in Springfield. And I think for the most part, I feel comfortable knowing that they have a sense of where our communities are and what our needs are specifically as it relates to matters such as school funding and other legislation that may impact funding. So I was pleased with the turnout. We had a good audience. Again, it was recorded. And do we have it yet posted for us, Michelle? Okay. So it has been recorded and it will be posted like last year's was. And since he heard it a couple of times, I'll also say Jeff Shula, superintendent of Wheaton, clearly understands that he'll hopefully host next year. But if you do have any feedback that you want to send me offline sometime about the format of that event, we are going to look a little bit how it could go a little bit differently. Last year, I think the format was okay because we had a hot topic right in front of us. But this year, without something right now pending, it was I don't know if it necessarily the format met our needs. So if you have ideas for that, I'd be happy to take those as we look to plan next year's.
Okay, it's certainly worth a watch if those in the public who have time to look at it. Any other reports or concerns? Okay, we're going to move on to monthly reports. We have several in there, the Treasury reports, investments, insurance, and budget. Are there any comments or concerns from the board on any of those reports? No? Okay, we'll move on to action by consent. And Mr. Yench did a review this month.
We just want to.
Yeah, I was getting to that.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to pull items 8.05 and 8.06 for separate discussion.
Copy that. Okay. I did have the pleasure to do it, and if the board would indulge me for a second, just for a matter of conversation, as my board packet, which we all fondly, or most of us fondly remember being dropped on our doorsteps Thursdays or Fridays before board meetings, before we went into the, barely. But anyway, they're still doing that with our bills and claims. And, I knew all the checks were already online, and I basically asked the silly question is, can't we do all this online? And the answer was, well, sure. So my question to my fellow board members is, does anybody really want the paper copies? Does it help them? And if you say yes, I'm sure they could be provided, but I think we can save a little bit of gas and some time and effort and a little bit of printer paper if we put it all online. But I'm not trying to force anyone into the 21st century, but...
there is one thing that's not online.
What's that?
Oh, they'll put the P-cards?
No. I'm talking about whoever's doing the bills and claims receiving the package online.
Receiving the package of information electronically.
Electronically.
Such as...
Like the procurement cards, because of legal constraints, are not posted online, but they can send it to you. So, I'm just wondering if we went to board docs many, many years ago, and this is just a leftover then. No, I mean to the person doing bills and claims.
The only thing I would say is it's a long list of a lot of things, and at least for me, I like just being able to circle it and rather than trying to go back and scroll through.
That's why I'm
That's
asking.
just my only perspective, but
I think it's a good question, but you can probably do it by user preference.
you could.
And
You absolutely could.
That was my next point.
Yes.
Do we want to, because I'm sure Brad's staff would be happy to ask, because they have to set up the appointment anyway, which do you prefer?
Why don't we do that? When Melanie calls or contacts you to set up an appointment, she'll ask if you want it sent in a paper or emailed to you.
Perfect.
I've done it both ways. The PDFs are nice, especially if you're
Well, I
on
like
remote.
searching, because I can search for a company like, name it, and all the payments to them come right up, and you can just go down them. But anyway, I digress. So I did have the pleasure of meeting with Brad and one of his staff members and reviewed all the bills and claims, found them to be in order, as there was no doubt in my mind there would be. So I move the approval of warrant number 401619 through warrant number 402528, totaling $17,524,092.63 for the period of August 18th, 2015 to September 21st, 2015, and action by consent agenda items 8.02 through 8.04.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for items 8.01, 8.02, 8.03, and 8.04. Roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Waukee.
Yes.
Fielden.
Yes.
Romber.
Yes.
Yens.
Aye.
Crotty.
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, item 8.05, the ECRA agreement.
8.05, last year, the Board of Education and the administration engaged Education Consulting Research Analytics for support on our Growth Discovery Project, which is our pilot work on looking at the teacher evaluation process and the tying of student growth into the evaluation, which, as you know, is required by law to be in place next school year. We had identified in the budget, through the budget process, an interest in expanding our work with this group to do some additional things, and we did budget for that, and it did come in less than what we had anticipated. Kane can provide you a little bit more background regarding the changes to the agreement, and then we can answer questions that you have.
Okay. The changes to the agreement really are to continue with one pathway that was started with the Growth Discovery Project, and that is to continue to build the data background that's necessary for measuring student growth in terms of teacher performance. That's related to PIRA, the legal requirement. I do want to stress, though, that the joint committee that's legally constituted is the committee that will decide what the model is that's used. And it's prudent to go ahead and engage ECRA now to get that data in place if the Joint Committee decides to go with that particular model. The data that would be there is still useful both for if we use a different model to measure or for other purposes. And I've outlined some of those purposes in this memo that you can see here, including, for our teachers to look at their students' growth on assessments by their own teacher roster. So in between any two assessments that we load into the program, they can see whether or not their students met expected growth based on their past assessment experience. And we've started to use that with teachers. We've used it with some principals and gone to some training on that and found it, we've had early positive feedback so far. And so the other things that are related to that are outlined in the memo, including the reporting that this system can provide and whether or not it will be something that we could use beyond just teacher evaluation, which is what we'd like to see by engaging them a little bit further than we have in the Growth Discovery Project.
I think the opportunity for program evaluation, work with them on that, and then also the reports that they're able to generate and the information we're able to get regarding our work on looking at gaps and closing gaps, I think are very, very robust reports. We've had some principals that have looked at some of the, been at some training regarding the software and find them to be very informative, very easy to use, and something that will inform the work and their school improvement planning that they do.
And it was me who asked to pull it, and only I'm completely supportive just to compliment you on the work that I know that has gone into this and on the depth that I saw in the reports. And I know that we're not able to really talk about it in the consent agenda, so I just wanted to have a chance that we could hear just how much progress has been made, as I know that's coming up in 2016 soon.
Any other questions?
Yeah, my only question was, and I think you answered it, was, usually when we have a program that you're building out, that actually costs more than the steady state. And in this case, we not quite doubled the cost of the program. So that's what took me a little aback. And, I read the summary, but you're really, what I understand is you're really adding a lot of capabilities that we didn't have before, but identified as possibilities going forward.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Can I please have a motion then for approval?
I will move approval of item 8.05, ACRA agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Wanke?
Yes.
Yench?
Aye.
Crotty?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Romberg? Yes. Fielden?
Yes.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Motion carries. Before we go on to item 8.06, I just want to point out the time is
Yeah.
the time is 9 o'clock now, and
I want to hear about the vending machine.
Yeah, they want to hear about the vending machine?
Put in the vending machine.
so if you want to hear about the vending machines, that's fine. But know this: if you're here at the meetings and it gets to be 9 o'clock, the board's wish and desire is that your studies come first and you're prepared for your next day at school. We're not expecting you to sit here and listen to us ramble on as we go forward, making decisions about your lives. Otherwise, but you're certainly free to leave at 9 o'clock. You don't have to ask for permission. You can just get up and go, whatever suits you. Okay. All right, we'll go on to item 8.06, bid on the snack vending.
All right, our contract with the previous, which is again the recommended vending provider, had reached the point where there's a mutual opportunity for extension. The vending company had expressed to us that they would not be able to continue under the terms of the original agreement, so we went out for bid. I believe there were 13 potential vendors that were contacted. 4 responded. 2 responded by saying that they wouldn't bid. They either didn't have the enough machines to service our needs or hadn't been in existence for 5 years or more. And then the other 2 did provide responses. I think in terms of a question I have had, there was a question because of the guaranteed amount of commission that the district would receive is substantially less than what was in the previous contract. How is that going to impact operations? And Brad, my understanding was that we had exceeded the $45,000 in previous years. So it's likely that even though there's a much lower threshold for the guaranteed, that we should still be able to exceed without much impact on our what we use those revenues to support in activities. Is that
Right, that's exactly right. I think some of the vendors' biggest concern was if there was continued change in the school law, which would restrict vending even more. And so, even though we are breaking the minimums now, they're looking at the fact, well, could Congress enact something else that's going to even, so instead of renewing at this higher rate, they felt more comfortable having a lower rate in case there was changes.
Any questions from the board? Any comments by the student ambassadors since you stayed for the snacks? So you've looked at all of them. They all meet your satisfaction, the popcorn and okay. I'll have a motion, please, to approve item 8.06, bid snack vending. 8.05. Sorry, 8.06.
I move approval of 8.06 snack vending as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Fitzgerald. Aye. Wanke.
Yes.
Crotty.
Yes.
Yench.
Aye.
Romberg.
Yes.
Fielden.
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right. We're on now to
Policy discussion is awful fun, but I know you've got a lot of work to do. So
it is every bit as riveting as your consumer economics.
We'll send them the clip of just this section.
We can send it by video, right? Of your sterling dissertation.
It's our most important work.
there you go.
Oh! I couldn't have done that if you tried.
I was only kidding about the rivalry.
Okay, policy discussion.
Okay, again, we have further kind of broken up Section 5, which is a rather lengthy section. Tonight is first review for the policies that are listed here under item number 9.01. We'll go through briefly, Kane, each policy by policy and raise questions and try to address questions that you may have. So, Kane, go ahead.
Okay, the first one up for discussion is 5.50, drug and alcohol-free workplace. You can see the revisions in red there. They include references to medical cannabis, prescription medical usage, and district actions to make employees aware of the policy and dangers of substance abuse. There were questions that came forward about this because this is kind of new territory, and particularly with the changing political climate, it becomes more so every day. And I'll go ahead and Ms. Hetman did look a little bit deeper into the law for us. That I think some questions, and I can just read what she was able to provide here and jump in anytime. Because the question was, can we ban use of medical cannabis if it's been prescribed to somebody? And the Act does not permit the following. I'm going to read a list. It doesn't permit possessing cannabis in a school bus, and these are strictly right from the statute, I believe. Doesn't permit possessing cannabis on the grounds of any preschool, primary, or secondary school. It doesn't permit using cannabis in a school bus, using cannabis on the grounds of any preschool, primary, or secondary school, using cannabis in any public place, including all parts of buildings owned in whole or in part or leased by the state or a local unit of government, using cannabis knowingly in close proximity to anyone under the age of 18, smoking medical cannabis in any public space where an individual could reasonably be expected to be observed by others or other places where smoking is prohibited. It prohibits the use of medical cannabis by any individual who holds a school bus driver permit or a commercial driver's license, and undertaking any task under the influence of cannabis when doing so would constitute negligence, professional malpractice, or professional misconduct. So all of those are explicitly prohibited under the law. Could somebody be under the influence of medical cannabis if prescribed? In other words, they show up to work under the influence of it. An employer may still discipline an employee who is a registered qualifying patient who is impaired at work in the same manner as it would discipline a non-registered impaired employee. So that's sort of the clarification to the word of the law on that subject, if that's helpful. Okay.
Any other questions from the board on that?
Mm-hmm.
On number 1, underneath there, it says, or being under the influence of a controlled substance while on district premises. Like, so if you're taking an opiate for pain, you can't come to school. I mean, it says you can't drive a car, or warns you on your drug. I mean, I'm just curious. What, you pull a muscle and you're taking something strong.
I think impairment is the threshold, really, but This is not a revised part of the policy. I'll have to go back.
I'm just curious, and do we drug test new employees?
No, we don't. Only our bus drivers. But the key here is to be impaired, and there are standards for being impaired, and the law provides for some guidance as far as what the look for is as far as being impaired. If you observe, for example, an employee's speech distorted, physical dexterity, agility, coordination, demeanor, you have the right as the employer to question and to remove temporarily, to have someone tested. So the key here is impaired. I don't know if that's answering your question.
It's not. Have you ever considered drug testing? Just, do you think it's, I mean, I've done it for jobs. I mean,
Yeah, we have not had a conversation since I've been here regarding at this table drug testing for employees. We, as you recall, we did discuss the pros and cons for our students. I think that issue may have come up during that conversation.
and they can be tested for steroid use, students.
By the IHSA, correct?
Right.
Mhm.
For athletes, correct.
So, that would be something we'd have to look into, and see what the ramifications would be of that, what limitations may be in place, if any.
I'm just
collective
curious
bargaining
because,
agreements law, so.
I mean, drug overdoses are the #1 killer of unintentional deaths in many age groups. It is just, sometimes somebody will say, I have a problem, I need help, but if you never have the opportunity to provide that,
We do have an employee assistance program that is there and our staff is made aware of that if they feel that they need support and help, we do have an employee assistance program that can provide support for things such as that.
Janet, is that something that can be on your list for when you meet with your superintendents, just to say, hey, are we the only ones that don't do it, or does everybody not do it? I'm just always curious.
I will. I
Yeah.
would venture a guess, but I won't venture a guess until I've talked to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have
I
a
guess
feeling
that's
of.
always my
I have a
first-
feeling
my
of
first
we're
check.
not the only ones,
Right,
but
just first check.
I will see who's out there. Mm-hmm. That would be interesting. That.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just to, I think, address the first part of your question was if somebody showed up with a prescription for a strong pain reliever, that would be covered under the next paragraph here, where for this policy, it describes what a controlled substance is. And basically, it means it was not legally obtained or it's not being used as prescribed. So if you were theoretically prescribed, let's say, codeine in a cough syrup, you could take it. And, we might have other issues, but you'd be legal under this policy to take it. And, if you're slurring all over your desk, then that might be a problem. But the way I read this, and correct me if I'm wrong, legal prescription drugs, you're allowed to use as prescribed and still show up to work.
Correct.
And if you can't perform your job, then we got other issues.
Then you address it through that. Yeah, that's correct.
Donna?
But I think what I heard Carol say is that if we think that if somebody thinks that they're impaired, then you can require drug testing at that point, correct? Or request it, or?
There are a number of things that we have the right to do. We could have remove the employee immediately. We can refer them to the EAP. We could make it mandatory to have them seek some type of assistance, either through, perhaps there might be some mental illness, there could be some drug use. We have the right, if we feel that, for example, if we smell alcohol, we would call a school resource officer over, and we do have the right to request them to blow. And if they reach a certain limit, we remove them immediately. So we have many things that we have done and we will continue to do. But the first step is to observe impairment. And the minute that we observe either visually or through smell, we have the right immediately to remove them and to either have them tested. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this policy? Okay, go on to the next one.
5.60 is on expenses. It is up for discussion only, but there's only been one change. This was up for discussion at the previous meeting, but there has been a change based on feedback from that meeting, and that is simply to include the cross-reference of use of credit and procurement cards in the associated administrative procedures and exhibits. We do try to avoid writing the same policy twice, but the cross-reference means that the person's responsible, just a reminder that they're responsible for knowing that policy too, as they should already know.
Any questions? Okay.
5.90 is abused and neglected child reporting. It includes language related to reporting hazing, alignment with Aaron's Law, and superintendent responsibilities with sharing personnel information. There were some questions about this, including, for instance, what do people not necessarily tied to a school building, what's their reporting requirement? And it does say superintendent or building principal, so we would expect them to refer to the superintendent's office in that case. For instance, a bus driver, IT person, somebody in another operational department, perhaps. Particularly if they didn't know the building to which the student was assigned. Also, there was an additional question because there's a definition of hazing here that is not precisely the same that's in 7.190, which is the student discipline policy that includes definitions of hazing. I'll be honest, I have to look a little bit more into that. The definition in 7.190 is not as in-depth per se, but they do basically touch upon the same thing. But I'll bring back further clarification on that at the next meeting.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually thought that 7.190 was better defined because this limits it to bodily harm. Okay. Whereas the 7.190 talks about psychological harm, mental harm, and stuff like that. So that's where I saw the biggest difference. The verbiage here is much shorter, too. Mm-hmm. So
I might have misspoke. I reversed my comment, sorry.
Yeah, because I was surprised that, someone could be hazing, in the old military sense, hazing someone, yelling them at a corner, but if there's no bodily harm, that's okay under this, the way it's written right now. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that's what we wanted. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Donna.
So, Kane, on 5.90, the first paragraph, it looks like we've taken out the signing the acknowledgement of mandated reporter status. Why is that? 'Cause, that hasn't changed, but do they not sign a form now, or do we know what the reason is for taking that piece out?
It's just located in a different spot. If you look farther down, it indicates it under the Abused and Neglected Child Reporting Act, School Code, and Aaron's Law Training. It's on the second page of the proposed policy, about the middle way down before beginning employment. Sign the so it's still there.
So they still have to sign the form?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we don't lose that. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, go ahead, Kane.
Next is 5.120, ethics and conduct. It adds a reference to ISB's Code of Ethics for Illinois Educators, and that's really the nature of the change for this policy. It's relatively minor in that regard.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay, you can go on.
5.125, personal technology and social media usage and conduct. This is a new press policy outlining boundaries between personal and professional uses of technology by staff members. It cross-references to other appropriate policies. We've added a few things just to kind of explicitly clarify even further that distinction. There was one question whether or not wearable technology should be included. We certainly can consider that, but if you look at both the definitions of includes in this policy and the definition of personal technology, the functionality that's described would be consistent with wearable technology. So not having wearable technology wouldn't, make somebody immune from this policy if they were wearing a watch, for instance, that did something that it shouldn't, the time it shouldn't, the way it shouldn't. Yes?
I agree 100%. Reading the policy, you're absolutely right. But I would suggest in the next couple of years, someone is far more likely to have a smartwatch than they are to have an iPod. So I'm just...
Or a BlackBerry.
Yeah, as an example, I think it may be more appropriate than some of the others, even though you're absolutely right, it's not excluded.
Sure.
So I get it.
Yeah, no, and there are others on here, so we can certainly include wearable.
It's not a big deal.
The brands aren't as clear yet, but... Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Kristen?
How are employees informed? How will they be informed of this new policy?
We'll work with the principals to identify the right venue for them to share this one, them particularly, and work with HR in the same regard.
Just in case they're not watching, and
Yeah, I know it's hard to believe, but you're right.
You don't make them?
Anyone else? Okay, go on to the next one, Kane.
5.150 on personnel records adds language related to reporting employees who have been reported to DCFS, adds more specific language regarding access to personnel records, and adds just a policy reference.
Questions, comments? Okay, go on to the next one.
Okay, 5.170 is rather extensive. I'm sorry, I take that back. 5.170 just has paragraphs on instructional materials and computer programs deleted as unnecessary, especially in context of 5.172, which is a new policy on intellectual property, which is next.
Questions? Go ahead.
And 5.172 is really an intellectual property ownership and commercial development policy. Specifically, it's titled Publication of Sale Materials Developed by Employees. It's new from press. It incorporates language from 5170, identifies the superintendent or designee as appropriate, and it eliminates unnecessary or outdated language. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is in close conjunction with I think our attorneys worked very closely on this policy. So not just press, but we've also referred it to our counsel.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Did we talk to any staff groups or employee groups at all about this policy? I'm just asking because it's really it's an interesting one. Talking about their own materials that they've created. And I just wondered if we've gotten any feedback from staff or if it would be covered under anything that we would want to talk to them about.
I don't believe we have for this policy. It wouldn't be typical in this case. There's a general consistency in the sense of something that a teacher is producing in the context of their job is district property.
Right.
Right. Correct.
I
Yeah.
had to think about that too.
Yeah.
And we did have that at one point in time in elementary. Somebody was trying,
Mhm.
but generally, that's not the goal. The goal is
Correct. Oh, absolutely. Yes. So I'm sorry. Just the short answer is we have not done that.
Any other questions or comments?
But it covers more than just when they sell. It covers also when they publish, a couple of different areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Publication, consulting.
It's publication or sale.
Yeah.
So it's not just selling. It's like if they just decide they're going to publish something, even online, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just,
That has commercial implications, so that's why it's in there.
You okay?
Yeah, but they could still present their work. Like if they were doing some kind of, that wouldn't be considered publishing if they were participating in some type of conference.
No, conference presentation, no,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
As long as it's presented as
Right, as
district,
District
not
203.
individual.
And
Correct.
that's typically done in consultation with the principal or the appropriate administrator.
All right, and go on to 5.18.
Temporary illness policy clarifies relevant definitions and aligns to relevant statutory and policy updates.
Questions or concerns? Kristen?
The only question I had was with regard to the part where it goes on to talk about a permanent disability. It just was, I wondered if the heading would be more confusing given that it says temporary illness, but it does go on to talk about, and I know that that's not really a change. It did seem to have that same language last time.
Can you ask your question again?
You're saying that you think the policy would be clarified if there were a heading related to permanent disability?
Well, don't we go on to talk about that? We go on to say, here's what also qualifies as a permanent disability. And so I just wondered, since it says temporary illness or temporary capacity, I think it did before as well.
Mm-hmm. In its May language, it says it may be considered that.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else? Yeah, as opposed to December language. All right, 5.204.
And 5.204 was also an item that was actually up for discussion at a previous board meeting. We're bringing it back with additions for clarification based on board feedback. Specifically, the last three lines relate to tutoring students by non-professional staff. The example was music lessons, but it's not exclusive to that. And we just put in there to clarify that, it's approved by the principal, and it's consistent with existing board policies and administrative procedures, and we've added references to those.
Good.
Jackie?
I just had one question. So that addition in the second paragraph, any tutoring of students by non-professional staff, does that mean non-203 staff?
No.
Or non-professional meaning certified? Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe it means certified, typically.
Means 203.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it means.
It can't be 203 because
Microphone,
Correct. Yeah, no, it doesn't mean 203. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
exactly.
it actually refers to people who are non-203 employees.
Okay, that's confusing to me then. I was
Okay.
kind of thinking it was the other way.
Me too.
So,
Okay. I think we're
so in
trying
the first paragraph, tutoring for fees, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay, tutoring for fees may not occur on District 203 property. Okay. Any tutoring of fees by non-professional staff, including but not limited to. Well,
Yeah, I think this was put under the exceptions paragraph, and we didn't clarify that it's
Right.
related to the exceptions.
Would it sound better? Yeah, I don't know if it would, because I think I understand your concern. If instead of non-professional, it said other than professional staff, relating back to the language in the first paragraph,
Yeah, maybe.
or other than 203
other
professional
than
staff.
203, I think, or non-203 employees. I don't know, just something, I interpret it differently, so I'm open to suggestions, but I definitely thought read differently.
Okay. I think I have a sense of what the confusion is, and I think we can come up with something that's clear.
Well, let me make sure that I understand.
Okay.
Music.
Right.
So we'll just use that as an example. It's an easy one because I know it exists. Music instructor from NEQA, can they give tutoring lessons at Central?
Yes, they could.
No, and I'm just asking if that's
Yes.
your intention, just make
Right.
sure that it reflects that.
Right.
So that's
That doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But could one of our folks, if it were not on District 203 property, as I read this, but I'm not quite sure if it's correct because of the non-professional, they could or could not do it outside if they had approval by the building principal.
They can, as long as they're on property.
They can, but only if it says, but what
It
is
says
that
exceptions to this
non-professional
policy
staff?
must be approved by the building principal. So if there is an exception, it has to be approved by the building principal of the building in which the professional staff member is assigned.
Okay, I still think it's confusing as to whether
I
or
do
not
too.
you're
What
giving the
words, I
exemption
guess-
for everyone or
Okay.
who you're giving it for.
I would eliminate the sentence that says tutoring for fees may not occur on District 203 properties, because the first sentence, a long one, is much more restrictive, and the second sentence in the first paragraph only causes confusion when, one paragraph later you say, except you can do this if you're not part of the district. All we're trying to say is our employees cannot tutor our students, right?
During the day.
Anywhere. That's what this says.
That was the original intent
Yeah.
of this policy.
So I
yes.
think that, I mean, I know it was there before. I see the big X through it, but big line through it. But I think if you think about it, if you take out that sentence, even the new one, without the bold and the capitalized, then I think it would make a lot more sense. It basically says, our professional staff will not tutor our students. By the way, I don't even know you want this exception thing, but other people may come in and tutor on our property. Or maybe you just don't even need that if the tutoring for fees may not occur on, because that's what raised my question.
Yeah.
Is that I know tutoring for fees
I know.
occurs. So,
But not on our property.
yes,
Yes,
it
it
does.
No, it does. Music lessons would be an
No,
example.
yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm getting confused because I thought that tutoring was allowed by a professional staff if approved by the building principal, not on the property.
Just
Correct,
during
I
the
agree.
regular, it's
Correct?
just regular school day. If I'm reading it, the tutoring can occur during the school day, but once the school day is over,
It says or school year.
Yeah, exactly. It says or school year.
okay. So
See,
point
I think
taken.
this
Is that what I mean, it doesn't need to be limited just to the school day. Or what's the
I
intention?
think the original intent was to not have, and if anybody would jump in, yeah, please, Ms. Hutton.
Okay. So this is really under the professional personnel. So the whole first paragraph really basically says that our teachers, our professional staff, cannot tutor and get paid for tutoring our students on District 203 property. What was meant by the second paragraph was really saying that if they're non-professional staff, meaning not our teachers, okay, we know that they do come into our buildings, particularly the high schools, okay, and they do tutor, okay, but the principal must be made aware, okay. We actually fingerprint those people because they may be in a room alone with a student, one of our students, okay, and they would receive a fee. Okay, it's just that our teachers cannot receive a fee, cannot tutor and receive a fee from those students, from our students. That's the first paragraph. Second paragraph is, we know that there are tutors that come into our district. We know that they get paid. We fingerprint them because they may be in a room alone with a student, and that's really what's meant by that paragraph too. And if the board likes the way this works, the concept of this, then we can rearrange the wording so that it's clear.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with that. There was one thing you said, though, that I wanted to clarify. When you just said that, you said, our teachers cannot tutor on property.
Correct.
Can the same band instructor who happens to play trumpet entertain one of our students in his home that evening and tutor for money? I think I know what the answer should be, but I'm going to wait for you to respond.
And I think there's another part in the policy that addresses that, for which the staff member has educational responsibilities. So I don't believe so.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I mean, and I don't think it should be that difficult. I don't think it should be that difficult. Can a teacher?
If I teach you, if I'm your teacher, let's say physics, which would go over real well, wouldn't it?
Can Can you tutor me in
I
math?
cannot tutor you for fees.
Can I tutor you?
During
in-
the school year. Right?
I think it should be pretty clear. We don't want our teachers tutoring our students. I think that's the intent. I think, don't you?
I think that.
Oh, okay. And
But is it happening during the school year, or is it like summer kind of thing?
I don't know. That's why I'm interested.
I think the
in this
intent of this,
policy.
let us look at this a little bit more, maybe speak with some folks who have been here for a little while. I think the intent of this policy was, I am Mike's physics teacher. I should not be tutoring Mike for a fee. That's part of my professional responsibility to support him in teaching. Now, if Kristen's not,
that's happening at all.
right, but
Let me-
but that's the intent of this policy here. And so if Kristen is a physics student at Central and I teach at North, there may be an appropriate tutoring relationship that could occur. Correct?
Or what
Okay.
about, the question I have is, what about like an instructional assistant? Could they tutor? Because they're not a, and again, it's this is why I'm getting hung up on the professional staff, because it's not usually the term that you use. Do you consider that to be a prohibition for an instructional assistant as well, or not?
I think it is a prohibition. When I think of professional staff, it's
Okay,
paid staff. It's
everybody.
paid staff.
Okay, everyone.
And then the same relationship that you just described about educational responsibilities. And
So if it's
forth
in my
is-
class, they can't tutor me. But if they're not in my class, no problem. As long as it's not on district property, correct?
I think I heard you say you were going to go back to the building.
Yeah, let us take a little bit of time.
I think it
with
should,
this one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So which is good that we came to this point. So I think of the ones that we've brought for reading, 5.204 is going to be the one that we're not prepared to bring back for action.
Yeah.
I think the others, Kane, you have some notes on maybe some slight modifications or updates?
Yeah.
But we should be prepared to bring back for action at our next meeting.
Correct.
Great.
Great.
All right. Very good. And thanks for shortening the agenda on that as well, given the time.
Yeah.
So, on to discussion with action.
Couple, yep, go ahead.
We have multiple, so if we can get the policy, when we get to 10.02, if everybody's amenable, we can take it all at one shot, unless there's questions on that. But we'll go ahead with 10.01.
Okay. These two policies we've discussed a number of times, and I think based on the board input from last time for board policy 440, the definition of cash and cash equivalents that was acceptable by the board has been added. Kane, anything else that you had there?
Not on that one.
Any questions?
Are any questions from the board on these two policies?
Well, we haven't talked about 100 yet. Yeah.
What, that's right.
Okay, so on 4100, Kane can speak about any updates that have been made. There was a big question last time about a memorandum that was issued regarding what's mandatory. The mandatory reference was it was mandatory by click, the group in which we participate. So, Kane, do you want to speak to that?
That was for the other blanket policy, and so to be in click, you have to have this policy, which is what made it mandatory. And so they referred to it as a mandatory policy because it's mandatory as part of your membership in click. And so it was included because that's the name of, that's the title they give it, but that's what the mandatory reference is to. In that. So can I go ahead and keep going with?
Well, are any questions?
No, this is listed as a separate agenda item, so let's stay on 10.01. We'll move to the ones in 10.02 in a minute.
Any questions on policy 4100?
Oh, that's what I meant on 4100.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry, Kane.
Just on the revised policy, after, trying to weigh the best way to word this policy for the purpose of clarity, which can be hard in describing an insurance policy and all the very qualifying events and things that include it, we elected to go ahead. We think it's best to keep the shall language that's in that policy, but we went back and rewrote it so that you can see that it is for all students, the catastrophic insurance, because that's consistent with what we currently have and with what we were getting in terms of board feedback. We then made sure that the language mirrored the policy that we do currently have, but without going into detail, the last sentence there indicates that qualifying events include but are not limited to those covered events stipulated in the blanket student accident catastrophic plan policy that we have. So what it does is it points us to that policy, And I think this is the right course, because in the future, as we change policy, then we just change that reference to indicate what it is that constitutes how someone's covered. And I think that will make it simpler in the long run.
So I think
Go ahead. You're fine.
So I think I understand then. All students get it.
Correct.
If there is a mandate, then it is for sure at that mandated level for anyone that would have a mandate, but all
Correct.
students are going to get the coverage.
Correct.
And just to make sure I understand it, the mandated coverage is basically mandated by CLIC so that we can participate in that consortium or cooperative.
Okay. Yes,
The
that's
levels
essentially true.
are-
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
And the second part of that, and they have already incorporated the minimums of state law into their minimums.
Yes, that
So
is-
by being part of them, we can almost ignore the first part, but it's
Yes,
nice to put in
but,
there.
But
Okay.
it's in there because that
Perfect.
makes clear that we're complying with the law.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Got it.
Perfect.
Any other questions on these two policies?
I love where we got with that, so thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay, if there's no questions, I'll please have a motion for item 10.01.
I will make a motion for item 10.01, the policy review for 4.40 and 4.100.
Second.
You have a motion and a second for item 10.01. Roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Yench,
Aye.
Price,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Wonky,
Yes.
Fielding,
Yes.
Romberg. Yes. Patty,
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 10.02, second reading for various sections of policy section 5.
Yes, these were all brought to the board for a first review at the last meeting. Kane?
So they're now brought to you for action. Action. And I'm looking here, but I think there isn't anything specific. They were brought to you for discussion the last time because of their, shall we say, consumability.
Brief nature.
Yes, brief nature and simple changes that were in store. So I can go over each of them individually. but I
Does
don't
anybody
think
have any
that's
specific
the case.
questions on the policies?
Yes.
Nobody wants to go through them laboriously.
I'm crushed.
I am not crushed. But let's keep going.
So otherwise, I'm happy to recommend them to you for action.
Are there any questions on any of these policies? Well,
There's more questions on 10.
there might be questions on 10.03. So if there are no questions on 10.02, may I please have a motion to approve that, all the policies as presented.
I will make a motion to approve 10.02, all policies as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Fielding,
Yes?
Patty,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Romberg. Yes. Yench,
Aye.
Wonky,
Yes.
Motion carries. Last item on the agenda for discussion with action.
Yeah, at our last meeting, we presented the recommendation from the Health Insurance Committee regarding medical prescription premiums, vision, and dental. There were some questions and concern raised by board regarding what the recommendation was. Brad has also prepared a couple other scenarios for your consideration, and I think has some information based on some of the questions that were asked last time, Brad.
Yes, so in your packet of information, we provided some additional things. Some of the first questions really were around the assumptions on the growth. I went back and we consulted with our advisor, and you know, I guess for simplicity, we had said it was a 9%, but he clarified that it's 5.2% for medical, and 15%, which is, you know, for a prescription drug, which has been very high in the past, 7% for dental. And this is based on the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois experience that we're currently seeing within the thing. So then to try to clarify or help bring that back to, you know, what we've been experiencing, I then provided 3 years of claims history, and that's in two different scenarios, A and B, where we just took a look at what happens if we actually were at that trending rate as Blue Cross and Blue Shield is projecting, or what if we trended below that. And so we have that information there for you. And with that, I'd answer any questions, additional questions the board may have.
Questions or comments? Mike? Oh, or Kristen, if your question is ready, you can go ahead.
Okay.
couple questions. Okay, number one, thank you for providing the additional information with regard to the plans that we have. I did have a question in terms of the gold, the silver, and the platinum. Do we set those coverage levels, or are those set by Blue Cross?
Great, excellent question. It's actually a kind of a combination. We are completely self-funded, but yet with that being said, there are some things with ACA, that we would have to comply with. So for example, let's take the gold high deductible health plan. In order to qualify for high deductible health plans, there's certain coverages that need to be covered, certain deductible levels that have to be met, or you wouldn't qualify for the HSA. So with all that put together, we kind of have this combination of things we look at. First, we've got to meet regulations. And then, so another regulatory thing would be mandatory coverage of some pre-existing things. That's ACA. We have to do it. But once we've kind of done that, then the committee, in consultation with Blue Cross and Blue Shield and our consultant and feedback from the staff, then we work on those coverages. But we can pretty much define them. For example, on the Platinum Premium Plan, we set those deductibles, and they can be adjusted, as necessary. Or in years past, we have done some adjustment to our RX plan, prescription plan. So.
Does that answer your
I
question?
got it. I found my own question answered right here.
Okay. Mike?
How did you get that 9% again? You averaged together the 5.2, the 15, and the 7?
No, the dental is separate. So basically, our RX runs about not quite 33% of our overall plan.
Really?
Yes.
Okay,
So
you answered my question. You answered my question.
So
Okay,
expensive.
thank you.
It's incredible. And that's based on claims experience.
Right.
So basically, they're saying this is what we expect, 15% for drugs, which
So
I believe.
Basically, we're reacting to drug inflation. not-
Basically.
Wow.
Okay, it's very helpful to have additional information.
Right.
Any other questions or comments on?
Well, I guess the next, even if we use the scenario A, which I still think is a little conservative, but now that I understand where that number came from,
Yep.
that prescription one
Yep.
caught me by surprise, and I guess it's because it's rising so quickly, it's taking a bigger chunk of the bill. We still have, at the end of the fiscal year, we had a $16.5 million balance. I think you've given us a number before, Brad. What do you think is a comfortable balance?
Well, when you're looking at our reserves, the first thing, and I've noted here in the report, first thing we have to do is we have to account for our estimated outstanding claims, or IBNR. So that's typically, you can see, running about $5.5 million. So then the balance after we subtracting that out then is our true fund balance. So you can see we're estimating about, in this one scenario, it'd be 9.7. I think anything, like I've said before, I think we're in that $7 to $8 million range, maybe 9 is healthy. So we are above that. I'm talking in total cash, So we're certainly healthy and above that. I think to kind of echo what the insurance committee's largest concern with setting premiums is they don't want to see a whipsaw effect, I think is the term they use. Whereas we might set the premiums a little low and then, oh my gosh, now we got to come back and go a little higher, and they're concerned about that. So I think that, but at that same token, our reserves are very healthy.
I mean, I could see, going for the 2.25 and putting that extra money into the education fund, or keeping it in the education fund. But I'm not going to push that. So I'm interested to hear if any other board member has a concern there, or if they're perfectly happy with the 4.5.
I'm concerned as well. We have seen the, I'm sorry to jump in, but I'm concerned as well. We've seen that reserve grow So that would be instead of doing the 4.5, we'd say the 2.25 increase. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's a compromise between doing, no increase, which I think we could also afford, but, 1.5 million, and, I think that's the worst case. Nothing's guaranteed, obviously, but I think that's a conservative negative case, and, we'd still have $15 million at the end of the year, which is way more than we
I would
need.
support that. I agree with you, Mike, and I would support that. And I'm sorry to go against the committee's recommendation because I know they put a lot of work into it and thoughtfulness into it, and I appreciate their concern about the whipsaw effect. I guess my response would be, should we experience those, should we experience a challenge, we tell people we didn't raise it as much last year because we wanted to continue to monitor. So, it could have been 2% more, but I don't know. I do appreciate the work that they do and do appreciate their recommendations, but again, have watched this surplus grow, and I'm reluctant to take that out of our pockets and our employees' pockets.
I guess I was a little confused by your 9.7 versus 16. Why is there the distinction between, because you said that 5.5 million will be utilized for claims that are outstanding, is that correct?
Right. So if we were to discontinue the program and go to a fully insured program, we would need about $5.5 million for claim run out because we collect the premiums in advance and we then pay the expenditures in arrears. So when you look at that cash balance, that is on truly the cash. But we have to realize set aside about $5.5 million. So our true fund balance, really, it's about 11.5 million. So, and as long as that fund balance maintains around 4.5 to 6-ish, we'd be fine.
So in the scenario where we do the 5.2 and the average 15% RX and dental, and so that comes to pass, if we do the 2.25 increase, we would have a 1.5 million deficit. So right now it's at 11.5.
Maybe.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I?
Yeah, yes.
Right now it's at 11.5, so it'd be down to 10 million.
9 million. So that's the second to last column on that report on Part A.
Right. 9.1.
Right. 9.1 of
Second
a
to
true
last
fund
Mm-hmm.
column.
balance.
Right.
Oh, I'm looking at a different thing. Okay.
Okay. But it's still a pretty substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And if it's lower, then we would have a potential
And that's what
$182,000 surplus.
Well, that's what scenario B plays out for you is what happens if our trend is lower than Blue Cross and Blue Shield is expecting. And so you can see if we did a 2.25, we would still have about a $10.5 million actual fund balance at the end of the fiscal year or the calendar year.
Mm-hmm. That was my question that I had last time. What was the expected increase last year, and how did it compare with what our actual experience was?
Right. Okay. So I looked into that. The thing that's difficult about going back historically was we have several things going on which made it difficult to track for changes. Well, number one, we changed from a September 30th year end to a December 31 year end. We also had the RX plan change 3 years ago. We had the ACA plan changes last year. And so with all of those things, there really was no comparable numbers. What I would like to recommend we do, because this is one thing I found a little frustrating, I would say we've not been giving, we give a report every month to the board, but I think we need to have 2 times a year where we do a look back and report out on the historical, kind of, if you will, budget to where we are and how things are going. And I think that should be in July or August, once we've finished our fiscal year, because even though we're on a calendar year, we still have to report out on fiscal year results. And then finally would be in February, most likely, after we've completed, we have a good, where we actually finished out the plan year of the actual health insurance. And then we can give, you know, 2 special reports, and we can do some comparison analysis. And I think that will really help us moving forward.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'd favor the 2.25% increase just because I think the fund balance is a little bit higher than I would like to see it. We've honored the request of the committee over the years, and we've seen the fund balance continuously grow. So, and it's a large amount of money right now that's sitting there. Certainly, I wouldn't want to see it to creep up to $20 million over time and just, you know, continue to grow. So, but I also want to be respectful of the fact that we don't want to burden our employees with a larger than would be expected increase if that should happen. So I think it's a nice compromise. Good.
So I would like to know, though, what the context of the committee's decision with the 4.5, like, they didn't discuss the 2.25 because that's something that we asked you to come up with from the last meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. We
Okay.
looked at the data provided by our consultants, which are doing surveys from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We discussed a 4% and we discussed a 5%. The committee was kind of split, and so we finally did a Solomon, as I would say. So we went 4.5.
So they never discussed the 2.25?
No.
Okay.
Would everyone, I think there might be value. What is the time frame on this? I think there's some value to go back to the committee before I don't mind the 2.25. I would not live or die by either one of them. But I do think it'd be great to get the committee's, I'm sorry. It'd be great. I think it'd be great to get the committee's reaction to the 2.25 and see if there's something we're missing. And, you know, it's the old buy-in. I think that they've worked on this. They've presented it. I didn't realize, I had forgotten that you went back. So I'm appreciative that you mentioned that the 2.25 was something that you went back outside of committee.
So
I think that'd be valuable.
The issue, I don't want to say forcing, we can do that. We've talked about that this may be a result of the conversation. I'd just be aware that open enrollment is scheduled to begin October 16th. Staff is going to need time with our, go ahead.
Right. That's a big, you know, I totally appreciate where you're at, and I'll do whatever you ask. I just do want to reiterate the timeline that we're on. I mean, we have...
Question. It always comes down to that.
Right. We have open enrollment kicking off October 16th. We are switching vendors. So we're a new vendor for our open enrollment this year, Business Solver. They're built out, and they're just sitting there waiting on us to give them the premiums. I know it sounds simple, but we actually have premiums, whether you're a 50% employee, a 60, 70, 80, you know, so, and then it's whether you're 26 pays or 20 pays. And so we have a whole sheet of premiums that need to be calculated and loaded into Business Solver. My business office would cringe if I said we could deal with this next meeting. If we need to, we certainly will, but they would be, you know, feeling very much under the crunch to get this ready to go, because we have set dates for that already, so we need to keep with those.
So after we've looked at a different scenario that the committee hasn't looked at, I know that the recommendation at the top of your memo is still what the committee presented, but is that still what the administration feels is the recommendation based on looking at the different scenarios and thinking about the reserve?
So I don't want to put somebody on the spot here, but I'm going to look at them real quick. There, if you want, I mean, Mark is on the committee, correct? And Mark, is there anything? Is there anything that, in terms of the concerns that were raised by the committee that we've missed that you think the board needs to hear? Yeah, that'd be great.
We always like to see Mark. We always like to see
Mark's nimble, so, you know.
Put me on the spot. That's already on.
You know, representatives, there's so many people.
Yeah.
The weight of the whole committee.
The weight of the whole committee right here. We did take a look at this very carefully, and quite honestly, I was the conservative one. I did put out 4%. Over the years, if you go back a few years, we had several years where there was 0% increase because of what we had done with the committee. Part of the concern with the committee was that we've made so many changes over this last year, we don't have data to really play out everything and to see if we've made the right choices or not. When we have done an increase, and I'll be honest about it, we did do an increase, and then our surplus did wind up growing. You're correct about that, because we thought that it wasn't going to be as much. So as we looked at the data and we listened to our advisors and what was coming from Blue Cross Blue Shield, et cetera, that we felt that 4.5 would be a good compromise between the 4 and the 5%. Now we just have to see. So from my perspective, I understand that's a large number of money, but we play it out for the next year to see where we fall. And then at that point, we very well may come back to you and say, look at what happened. We did better than we thought, or we did exactly what we thought, so we can come back and have a 0% increase for this next year and perhaps the year after that. But as Brad said, we're all very concerned. If you remember back, and this was many years ago, maybe none of you were on the board at that point, but we had to borrow $250,000 because the plan had gotten so far behind in arrears. And since that point, we've worked very hard to get to the point where we are today. So my only concern would be I don't want to get the fund balance down to the point where it's near zero like we had several years ago. And I really don't want the board and the taxpayers, et cetera, to have to shoulder a 10-12% increase because we missed the mark. I would rather have us go with the increase that we suggested from the committee and then take a look at it next year, because we'll have some data on the 3 plans and what we've done with the RX and those kinds of things, more data than we have right now than we can present. This is year 2.
This is
without, yeah. So I guess that's where we came from with our recommendation, and then there is always the question: how big of a fund balance do you need? And I fully understand that, but I would really like to be able to come back next year and go, hey, we don't need to increase premiums at all, and the year after that, hey, we don't have to increase premiums at all because we've been able to do the kinds of things, and we're seeing the data come back to the positive. I would hate to come back and say, gosh, we need a 7% increase next year because none of this worked. So.
Mark's on the committee. Carol, are you on the committee as well? Yeah. Well, yes. I think we might get the whole thing done right here, the whole committee. I don't know, Terry. I mean.
Well, I think your point is valid, and hear exactly what you're saying. That but take the increase now, and we'll reanalyze it next year and in subsequent years to see where it's at.
I just wondered if Carol had any other.
This committee is an extremely conservative committee, concerned about the expenses, wants great plans, understands legislation with ACA, and is committed to really watching the dollars. It was pretty much unanimous around the table, and it was just between 4 and 5%, and everyone settled at 4.5%. But everyone is concerned. A couple years ago, like 2 years ago, we made some really, really significant changes in the plan design, which resulted in over $1 million worth of savings. Okay, and that was the committee who actually made those changes so that if you use the plan, you are paying more out of your pocket. And again, it's the committee who is concerned about the expenses, and Brad used the word whipsaw because that's what several people were concerned about that. And as Mark has been part of this for many years, he's seen that concern by the members because they just don't want to see a 0% or too low of an increase. They'd rather take a bit of a hit, a little bit more now, and not see a 7% increase because that would really impact the members. So it's just an awesome group of people who are concerned about a good mix, good benefits, but you got to pay. And if you're using the plan, you pay.
So I would say, I was concerned about our surplus in the fund as well, but hearing the two of you speak and Brad and the recommendations that's made by the committee, I would say that I stand with the committee's recommendation then.
I would echo what Donna's saying. I believe we have, in this particular case, it would have been great if it was let me start again. If we're backed up to a deadline, and I don't want to go against a lot of hard work. I don't have a strong opinion one way or another, so I'd go with the committee.
Susan?
I support the committee's decision then, and we'll take a look at it next year.
Kristen?
I was going to go with the committee as well.
So can I make a motion?
Oh, Susan? And Mike?
I think the balance is still way too high, but remember I let off. I can live with either one.
But, well,
because, you can double the 9% to 18% and it still wouldn't hurt our balance that much. But like I said, I can go with either one, and I hear where the board is at.
So, and I would agree with you, right? But what I also heard said was that we would take a look, we'll revisit it again next year, and if that balance is still beginning to creep up, because that is a strong concern of the board. We don't want it to, just from my perspective, creeping up towards $20 million is not going to be a good thing, and it has grown over the years. We want to give you the good benefits that you deserve. That's our goal. We want to give it to you at a fair price, at a fair cost, rather. But we also don't want to have so much money in reserve that it hurts us too at the end of the day. So that's the concern.
Well, I think we fully agree with you on that, and I would just add one more thing, and that is, we added a gold plan and a silver plan. And if you look at the numbers, not very many people took the option for the gold plan or the silver plan. But now people may start to see the benefit of that, and they may move. And I would hope that. So then we may see some savings there too. We're trying to be as conservative as you are.
I think that's it. All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Thanks for Mark for letting me put you on the spot.
Well, is there any more discussion by the board before we take it to a motion? Okay, then we'll have a motion for item 10.03 as presented.
Let's just clarify, because the recommendation is a little bit of vague in there, so that I would just ask that the motion be to support the Health Insurance Committee's recommendation as presented.
Okay, motion to present the Health Committee's recommendation as presented.
I move to approve 10.03 as the Health Committee present it.
Second? Is there a second? Second. For motion and a second, roll call, please, Ms. Bell.
Wonky? Yes. Romberg? Yes. Yench?
Aye.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Fielding?
Yes.
Crotty? Yes. Price?
Yes.
Motion carries. Good discussion. Thank you for all participating, and especially to you, Mark, for taking time to come out of your chair and talk to us. Appreciate that. Any new business? Any old business? Schedule of events. We have another meeting on October 5th, which comes up pretty fast.
I'll just highlight again, although we just completed the State of the District Focus 203, our second series is October 28th and 29th, the end of the month, and we'll focus on our digital learning initiative. So we look forward to that opportunity for our community.
And just as a reminder, we have an IASB dinner, DuPage Division dinner coming up for those who may not have registered, but if you want to attend, please contact Ms. Bell. I'm sure, well, the good news is there's certain to be, the better news is there's certain to be some sort of good dessert. So, motion, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, go for me too, would you?
I know the ambassadors are watching at home. You know that. We'll wait.
They're not watching.